Okay, welcome everybody to the Wednesday, August 18th regular board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and pursuant to Board Policy 1B5, all meetings of the Salisbury Township School District are audio and video recorded. And also, prior to today's meeting, we had an executive session immediately prior to the meeting tonight to discuss litigation of AH versus STSD, docket number 521 CV 02082, EGS, in the United States District Court for Eastern District of Pennsylvania. So with that, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Taylor, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeFrank. Here. Ms. Frick.
Here.
Mr. Gatanis.
Here.
Ms. Glenister.
Here.
Mr. Ganal. Here. Mr. Hattinger.
Here.
Ms. Klinger.
Here.
Ms. Nemitz.
Here.
Mrs. Ziegler.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, student representatives report, we have none. And special recognitions and presentations, we have none. Any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments concerning the agenda? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Now, before I got started here, I should have just double-checked with everybody. If anybody would like to speak concerning 1.8 or our last citizen comments, there's a sign-up sheet. Am I right? Okay. So with that, we'd like to start with citizens' comments. Mike, do we have anybody?
Yep, we have the sign-up sheet here. We have Meredith Kelly first.
Hello everyone, my name is Meredith Kelly. I am 13 years old and I'm an 8th grade student at Salisbury Middle School. I have been attending school in Salisbury Township School District since I was in kindergarten. I've always been pretty happy and content with the decisions that the board has made in regards to mine and my classmates' education, and I want it to stay that way. So I'm asking you, as a student who has experienced the consequences of COVID-19, please mandate masks in school for all students and staff. The Alpha variant of COVID-19 is already very dangerous, but now with the Delta variant, the need to wear masks and get vaccinated is even more pressing. Personally, I am fully vaccinated and I have been since the end of last school year, but I still believe that the battle we are facing with COVID-19 is not over, and it won't be over until we all cooperate and either get vaccinated or put on a mask. I would also like to add that I am not the only student that feels this way. Many of my friends and peers feel that school will not be safe if we don't go back to school with masks required for everyone. Schools all over the country have opened with masks being optional and have promptly closed within weeks of opening due to an outbreak of COVID cases. An example of this is Lee County Public Schools. After just a week of classes held in person, multiple students and staff members have tested positive for COVID-19. 17 staff members at Lee County Elementary School alone have called in sick or have quarantined. If we are not careful here in Salisbury, the same thing will happen to us. So board members, once again, I strongly urge you to vote in favor of mask mandates for our schools and for the safety of students, staff, and families. Do what is best for everyone and do what you have to do to keep our schools open. We want to stay in school and we need to stay in school. Thank you for your time and have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Jen Kelly.
Hi, good evening. My daughter might have done a better job than I'll do to be a little calmer. My name is Jennifer Kelly, and I have two sixth graders and an incoming 8th grader in the Salisbury Township School District. I am also a registered nurse. I am here tonight because I am very concerned about the safety of our students and staff if they are not required to follow recommended safety measures such as masking. Currently, Lehigh County and much of the United States is experiencing high transmission of COVID due to the Delta variant and insufficient numbers of people being vaccinated. As most people in this room probably know, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Physicians, these are who we should be looking to for our guidance, all recommend that students, visitors, and staff in K through 12 schools should be masked. According to the CDC, infection rates can be comparable and in some settings higher amongst kids than adults, especially as more adults become vaccinated. Also, we don't know the long-term effects for kids yet. You know, adults get long COVID. I personally have a coworker at work. Her entire family tested positive before she was able to get a vaccine. And she still has long COVID symptoms, shortness of breath, fatigue, etc. We don't know what that's going to be for our students. Why would we not do what's going to protect them? We do know that not masking, as my daughter just pointed out, results in massive outbreaks and kids having to stay home in quarantine. Parents worry that masks are not safe. I looked at a few websites, one of which was a Johns Hopkins website. Masks minimize the amount of respiratory particles that spread COVID. So just like anything else in life, it's not 100%, but it does reduce the risk of contracting and getting COVID. So why would we not do it? People worry that they're going to rebreathe their carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide molecules are too small. They escape masks, cloth masks, and medical grade masks. So that should not be a concern. More and more children are getting sick. You've probably heard that, you know, the Dallas hospital, some of the pediatric units are filling up. Pennsylvania, so far, we're not in that yet. But if we continue the way that we're going, that's where we'll be. Just some personal experiences as a nurse, and I won't go on and on, I promise. I work in labor and delivery, so I did not experience a COVID unit. I know nurses who did. It is horrifying to watch people die of COVID. I have had to call for help from a respiratory therapist for a patient of mine who was stable, to be told, I'll get to you when I can. I have people down here dying. It's very serious. We had a 25-weeker pregnant, transferred to a higher level facility. They had to deliver her because she was so sick. Her baby's in the NICU. They had to crack her chest to resuscitate her multiple times. She was waiting for a lung transplant, the last that I heard. These are just some personal experiences that I've had. I implore you to do the right thing, to do what's recommended, and to have everybody mask. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Stevens?
My name is Megan Stevens. I'm here to comment on agenda item 3.1, the health and safety plan for the 2021-22 school year. I'm going to take this off so you can hear me. To be honest, I don't even know why we're having a debate about requiring masks at this point. I have been doing research on vaccines, masking, mental health, the well-being of our students and staff, and COVID-19 in general. I have researched the recommendations of both the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics. I have provided all of this research to the board prior to this morning meeting. Sorry, it was a lot, I know. I have also been tracking the status of Lehigh County since the beginning of August. We have, in the last 18 days, moved from moderate status to high status. Both the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have recommended, and frankly, they need to just say require so everyone stops honing in on that word recommended, that all students and staff from kindergarten through 12th grade should be wearing masks regardless of vaccination status. This Delta variant is twice as contagious as the previous variants of COVID-19. It is also more likely to cause hospitalization than the previous strains, and unvaccinated people still remain the greatest concern to be infected. That includes my child and students from kindergarten through at least half of 6th grade who cannot be vaccinated because they are under the age of 12. A mask remains the best protection they have. My child will certainly be wearing one whether or not you keep masking optional. However, I want to remind everyone that by not masking at school, you are making a decision for not only your own child, but for mine as well. In my research, I have found no correlation between masking and mental health. There is more concern about the mental well-being when students are not in school. Also, what about the mental health of parents? Last year was a struggle for all parents working from home and having to monitor their children during lessons, which for some of us also happened to be working hours. It was a struggle, and I believe that if parents have to go through that again, everyone's mental well-being will suffer. Our students need to be able to be in school and be protected. I am doing my part, my family is doing their part. If people cannot do the right thing by their community, then they can stay home. I am tired of sacrificing for people who don't want to be decent human beings. This mask is the best chance that we have of keeping our students at school in person full-time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Harley.
Good evening.
Good
My name's
evening.
Ken Harley. I live over in Park Avenue. I have two sons that are in elementary, going to be first grade and third grade. I appreciate you hearing us this evening. Appreciate pledging to the flag and allowing us to have choice. Choice is important. I'm grateful for those who are speaking about what they feel is necessary for wearing a mask. I believe that's their choice to wear a mask, as it is, I believe, my choice not to. I have been out working in the construction field this entire time. I never had a time of shutdown. I've been all over the place. Jersey, where it was bad in the beginning, and in contact with all kinds of people. I don't discount the things that were said this evening. Many people have experienced tragedy and tragic results from something that is disheartening that we all have to deal with. But I don't want to lose the freedom to choose how we live our lives. It just seems like every time we get to a scenario like this, whether it was 9/11 where things changed drastically, or whether it's something like this, that we're all dealing with, safety becomes something that ends up taking away freedom. And I want us to be able to choose and not just have to follow what everybody feels is the right way to go. Again, I appreciate you listening to us, and I hope that as I see everybody that's choosing not to wear masks is a sign for how we may be feeling this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Gunning.
Good evening. So my name is Jesse Gunning. I represent Sophia Gunning and Jesse Christopher Gunning Jr. And I represent every one of the people, 70% of which, that voted to not have masks. I represent you tonight, okay? I represent all of you. Now, I'm not that familiar with the eligibility requirements of the Salisbury School District Board member, but I think I speak for a lot, that one prerequisite should be the requirement to have children actively enrolled in the school district. And you know who you are, so I'm not going to point you out. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of hearing people that have no skin in the game vote on policy for our kids. I don't care what you have to say. You got no kids in the school? Take a hike. It should be a new rule. Board member, prerequisite, Salisbury Township resident, have to have kids in the school. Once they're graduated, you're out. See ya. Becky, this is for you. At the July 14th board meeting, as part of your two-page, and I'm calling it the Jerry Maguire Manifesto, your Jerry Maguire Manifesto, you stated, and I quote, "You elected us to make the best decisions possible for all of our stakeholders using the best judgment and facts." Facts. Well, here's a fact check for you, Becky. You were not elected by anyone right here. You weren't even elected by anyone outside of the people sitting on this board. No, actually, rather, you were elected, right? And you know this, so I'm surprised you missed it. On a July 8th special board meeting of 2020, you were elected by the Salisbury School Board in a 5-2 vote to fill the seat vacated by Courtney Gibbs. You were not elected by the people. You were elected by your peers. I'm surprised you missed that, because I checked your LinkedIn profile, it says you're an editor, so you must have missed that one. Now to the meat and potatoes. About a week ago, a man by the name of Matt Walsh of Nashville, Tennessee, attended this children's school board meeting. The video of that meeting has since gone viral. I'll paraphrase some of his key points because they align to the ones I provided at last month's meeting. COVID poses almost no risk to our kids at all. 4.2 million children have tested positive for COVID. A total of 0.008% have died. What about the flu? The CDC estimates that 480 kids died from the flu in the 2018-19 season. That's more than have died from COVID in a year and a half. Did anyone on this board at that time suggest wearing masks? Did anyone in this audience suggest wearing masks during the 2018-19 flu season, which was deadlier than COVID? I doubt it. Actually, I know it. I don't need you to actually respond. You never respond anyway. It's the beauty of being on the board. In closing, 10 years ago, President Obama said to then Virginia Congressman Eric Cantor, elections have consequences, and at the end of the day, I won. Actually, I should speak to these people most, because really who matters. We all matter. We pay the bills. Remember that come November at the general election. Stop re-electing members who don't serve the best interest of you or your children. Tell your neighbors, remind yourselves to vote. My best advice would be to write in Mike Babb in November. He'll be your voice, the people's voice, for the Salisbury School District. Thanks for having me.
Michael Babb.
For those of you that don't know me, my name's Mike Babb. Most of you do know me. Over the past year and a half, listening and contributing to the school board meetings, I have found a common thread from all of the board members. I continually hear, I believe, and I feel that, ... That's irrelevant. Your role is not to advise on your own personal beliefs, but instead solely on the beliefs of the citizens of Salisbury that voted you in. Let's get to the hot topic. The wearing of dog muzzles, also known as masks, being forced on our children. During the last meeting, Mr. Hattinger made a comment that of his 17 grandchildren, none of them minded wearing the muzzle. This seems highly unlikely. I have 2 children currently enrolled in the school system who are both very social. We regularly have over a dozen kids in our home over the course of a week. On weekends, there are over a dozen at one time. If they are not outside swimming, they can be found inside our home, in our arcade, or in our home theater. None ever wearing a mask. I ask each one their thoughts on wearing a mask. I always get the same answer. Mr. Babb, we hate wearing the mask. You do realize these children and most others also socialize together inside without masks. So whether they're going to in school or not, they're still going to outside. If you want your child to wear a mask, then so be it. If you want them to wear scuba gear, then go for it. Just don't try to force your beliefs on my children. Any parent speaking otherwise, trying to make every child mask up, is completely irrational. That would be the same as me standing here saying no one can wear a mask. That's not the case. We're saying it should be optional. Regardless of the board's direction, my children, along with 92 other concerned citizens of Salisbury families, will be sending their children to school without a mask. If the school decides to make masks mandatory, you will certainly be putting teachers and administrators in a very unenviable situation day one. You will be able to hide in your homes while teachers and administrators are dealing with disgruntled parents. This is the United States of America, not the Communist States of America. I ask the board to use common sense and leave masks as optional for all students. Thank you for your time.
Russell Landy.
Tell me when. I only have 3 minutes.
You're ready.
Is it starting now?
Sure.
Okay. I'm Russell Landy. I live over on Ellsworth Street. I have a daughter that's in 6th grade in the Salisbury School District, and I used to sub for Salisbury for many years. I'm here to talk about the masking, as is many others here, and I would at least say that maybe we should stick with where we're at, because we had a good conversation the last meeting, and let's keep it optional and go from there. The school year hasn't even started yet, and you can see it's already contentious. So we should just stay the course and then make adjustments accordingly, and not just listen to the morning call and CNN and whatever else you guys watch on TV. Those with concerns, they can wear masks. I've been saying that all along. It's not those who won't wear masks that should stay home, that one of the members or one of the family members spoke about. No, it doesn't work that way. If you don't want your child in the school environment because you're concerned, there are options. But it's not those that don't wear masks that should have to stay home. So where is the line here? We're social distancing, we're wearing masks, now it was a vaccine, now it's a booster vaccine. What's going to happen? What do you kind of bring up now? Like, what is going to be next? Is it going to be after the Delta variant? It's going to be the Echo variant? Like, this is never, at some point you have to draw the line, and where does it stop? We, as parents, are not idiots. We're capable of making decisions for the welfare of our children. We listen to the same news and the same experts and the same guidance. We can make decisions on our children, but thank you for caring and want to do that for us. But we can do that for ourselves. And our decisions are, we don't want masks mandatory, or those that want to have it can wear it. There's postings on the Salisbury Township School District website, lots of them all the time, with kids all together. They're not wearing masks. They're not social distancing. So why is it in 2 weeks from now, all of a sudden now that matters? Because it didn't matter the whole summer. So I will say one last thing. If this is so important and such a threat, then why is it, as we stand and sit in this room, that 2 members of the school board are wearing masks and nobody else is, when masks are so important? I don't see social distancing throughout. Look at the audience right here. That's a contradiction. I don't get that. This is about masks, right? Remember masks and social distancing and forced vaccinations and all that other stuff? Look at yourselves. Look at the audience. How are you telling us that masks are so important and nobody's wearing them? Which is it? Are they important or aren't they? And whose choice is it? Everybody here's made a choice. Wear a mask. Put your mask on right before the meeting. Your choice. Wonderful. But we have to make a choice too for our kids. And that's what we're choosing to do. I thank you very much for doing what you do. Me speaking at a meeting has come at a huge expense because I had aspirations to be with Salisbury School District, and I know that bridge is completely burnt now. But I do thank you for doing what you do, and I ask you make the right decision and go with the mask as optional. Thanks.
Christina Aki.
My name is Christina Aki, and I reside at 1451 Stanley Avenue. My son is going to be going to 1st grade. On August 19th, 2020, I emotionally urged the school board to allow in-person learning. The school board's decision that night was to have virtual learning through the first marking period. The main reason behind their decision, if I can remember correctly, is that the schools were not able to accommodate the 6 feet distance between children that the CDC was recommending at the time. While I disagreed, I believe that just maybe the school board was possibly making the right decision. Why would I think that they didn't have the best interest in mind for my child? As the weeks and months started to pass, while all children were doing virtual learning, I started to question the decision by the school board. I started to question whether or not all children were being treated equally, regarding the mask and the 6 feet guideline, the same guideline that prevented my 5-year-old from getting a proper education. So again, to remind you of the date that the decision was made to do virtual learning, it was August 19th, 2020. On September 16th, 2020, 4 weeks later, the Salisbury Township School District Facebook page posted a picture of the girls' tennis team posing for a picture together, not socially distancing. They were actually hugging. Between September 21st, 2020 and August 8th, 2021, pictures were posted of the field hockey team, tennis, football, cheerleaders, soccer, homecoming court, the farewell fest, students unmasked, not socially distancing in the classroom, showing their Kona ice, the class of 2021 parade with multiple unmasked kids in one car, picnic day, teachers in line for a food truck not wearing a mask, wrestling, basketball, baseball, and swim club, all not socially distancing and at times not wearing a mask. My question is, how is it decided who the health and safety plan that you created was applied to? It's hard to take anything that any of you say seriously when you say that you want our kids to be safe, when you are picking and choosing who is required to follow your rules. If a mask will be required and not optional, my questions to you are as follows. What has changed in the schools to allow 3 to 6 feet distancing? Who will be overseeing the younger children to ensure of the proper mask removal? The CDC has directions on how to properly remove a mask. Carefully remove the mask, not touching the outside of the mask. Handle the mask only by the ear loops. Fold outside corners together, and immediately wash your hands. Will there be a sink provided in the cafeteria for children to wash their hands prior to removing the mask, after removing the mask? How are they going to walk to their lunch table with their mask off? Is COVID not transmissible while walking to eat? What happens when a child with allergies is sneezing into their mask all day? We are asked to send 1 extra mask with our child. How many will the school district be supplying so the child is not wearing a wet mask all day? The CDC has said, quote, a wet mask can be hard to breathe through and are less effective than a dry mask. A mask should be a choice the parent makes, not people who know nothing about my child. This is my decision, this is my child, not yours. As a previous citizen said prior to providing her opinion, let me take this mask off so you can hear me. But we expect our young children to be able to hear properly. My son learned to read and write by a wonderful teacher, and now throwing him into a class where he won't be able to see his teacher's face or see how she's pronouncing words. Let's stick to the facts and leave your feelings out of it. Regardless of your decision tonight, my 6-year-old son will not be wearing a mask to school to make others feel safe.
Emily Pojanowski.
Okay, I'm short here. I'm going to move this down. Hi, good evening. I know obviously the health and safety plan is being discussed tonight, and obviously that's going to center around masking, since we recently received that survey and the same discussion is occurring in other local school districts. As you probably know, case numbers in Lehigh County have been rising, but deaths are at 2 for the month of August. And the 7-day rolling average is still 0. The average age of those who have died during the entire pandemic in Lehigh County is over 80, and there are no juvenile deaths under age 15 in Pennsylvania. As Dr. Peter McCullough has stated, the current variant of the virus has become more transmissible, but less deadly. Now, in light of the impending health and safety plan discussion, I am again asking you to provide parents with the legal basis for you to enforce that all persons wear masks in our schools. If you watched the recent Pennsylvania State Senate hearing a couple of weeks ago, that same question was asked of our Secretary of Education. Secretary Ortega could not provide an answer. He did follow up subsequently, stating that the public school code authorizes the school board to make rational rules to protect student safety, citing sections 510 relating to school safety patrols, 407 relating to school board governance, and 301 which relates to the election and appointment of directors. Since the board's authority is strictly statutory and the longstanding judicial principle of Dillon's rule states that local authorities are limited to the explicit powers given to them by the state, the board does not have this authority. You cannot force parents to mask their kids without incurring liability. The local and state health authorities may have this power, but as you know, there are no existing emergencies in Lehigh County or Pennsylvania, and Lehigh County does not have a separate health department which can mandate masking. Even if we presume you have the authority to force our children to mask, you still cannot without parental consent. You are not doctors or medical providers. Masks were authorized by the FDA in April 2020 to be used as emergency use only for source control. Masks are an emergency use only medical device. Medical devices authorized for emergency use require informed consent, which physicians have a duty to obtain from their patients. I believe that if a physician must have informed consent, then a school who is not in the healthcare business should as well. The workaround to all of this is optional masking. That way, parents who want their kids to wear masks can elect to do so, and parents who do not want their kids in masks can make that choice as well. If you intend to force the kids to wear masks, then you should provide parents with the necessary documentation so we can provide informed consent. I can tell you right now that you do not have my informed consent to mask my kids. I attended Saucon Valley School Board meeting Monday, and some observations. I was impressed. Their board is extremely deliberative on the mask issue. They spent almost 2 hours, maybe more, deliberating and debating. They presented seven different plans for a vote. They questioned their superintendent, their solicitor, their doctor, and each other. I would also hope that when you move to the deliberation phase that you take into account questions asked of board members and the solicitor. At that same meeting, I had great difficulty understanding and hearing those who were wearing masks. The speech was muffled and sounded far away, and I'm truly saddened that our kids had that same experience all day, every day when they were in school last year. Thank you.
Elizabeth Sterner.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Sterner. I reside at 1660 Broadway. I am a student at Salisbury High School, and this upcoming semester I will begin my 11th grade year. Last year, I attended my second semester of my 10th grade year under the hybrid model and had experienced masking in schools, and I wish to share this experience with you now, as it is my education that is being affected with your decision. During the about 7-hour school day, plus busing time if a student takes the bus, the only mask break that we receive is during our 30-minute lunch period, and this break will also be shortened if a student has to stand in line to get lunch or leave their table for any other reason. With one small break, it is challenging to wear a mask all day, and I personally would have headaches frequently throughout the day. I felt bullied into wearing a mask, as if I took it off in the classroom, I feared disrespecting a teacher or being sent to a full virtual schooling, which would affect the value of my education. If I left the classroom to take an unofficial mask break in the bathroom, I would miss class time unnecessarily, which could have been avoided if I just didn't have to wear a mask. During physical education class, we would participate in workouts with masks on, and I found it uncomfortable to wear one while sweating and experienced even further difficulty breathing. Sometimes it was hard to hear what a teacher was saying, even though they did try their best, especially during personal conversation with a teacher where they would be speaking directly to us and would lower their voice. While students received one mask break, teacher and other staff would be allowed to take their masks off while they were in their rooms or offices by themselves. The student experience is different than the experiences of the teachers, staff, and you board members, and this is why I feel like it is necessary for me to share my experience for you to make your decision. I hope you vote in favor of mask optional in schooling, and I respect the decision of someone to wear a mask, but I'm asking for equal respect to make my own decision and to not wear a mask. I will not wear a mask regardless of what your decision is tonight while attending school this year or any other. This is not out of disrespect to my peers, teachers, or anyone else, but I make this decision out of respect for what is right to me and my health. Thank you, and God bless.
Teresa Sterner.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Sterner. I live at 1660 Broadway, and I am here to speak against mandatory masking of our school children. Excuse me. I have 5 kids in Salisbury schools that deserve an unobstructed education. When this all started a year and a half ago, we were told that we needed to quarantine for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. When did flatten the curve become hide until the virus is gone? Flattening the curve does not mean that we are taking measures to prevent people from ever getting sick. It simply means that we are taking measures to prevent people from catching the virus and having it spread out over time so that hospitals and the medical community is not overwhelmed with cases all at once. Now, here we are, 17 months later, and we're still trying to hide from a virus that is not ever going to go away. Viruses do not disappear. and we should all be thankful that this virus does not target children. Yet, children are being forced to wear masks, which to me is nothing short of child abuse. While I do not believe you need to be a scientist to understand the harmful effects of masks, I do have a doctorate in molecular biology, and I firmly believe masks do more harm than good. Children, including my own, complain about headaches, breathing problems, being hot, and not being able to focus. Imagine that. Not being able to focus and breathe while you are trying to learn. We don't mask babies for a reason, and that reason is that masks do interfere with normal breathing. Additionally, correct use of wearing a mask to prevent contamination requires frequent changing. The mask is contaminated after a very short time. By requiring children to sit in filthy masks all day, they are being harmed. I would also like to add that masks are a physical barrier to learning. Small children learn through facial expressions. They are not getting these when their teacher is hidden behind a mask. And as you all observed tonight, as someone else pointed out, one of the speakers had to remove their mask, who was pro-mask, so that you can hear her clearly. We're sending our children to school. They need to hear their teachers. They learn from facial cues. They learn from enunciation with their mouths. We have also been told numerous times that the local schools are being advised by St. Luke's Health Network. I would like to know where they were when Music Fest was taking place, a festival that drew over 1 million people spread over 11 days. If their concern is to control a supposed spike, why did they not call for it to be canceled? Did you see the pictures? Hardly any masks there at all. St. Luke's did no such thing. In fact, St. Luke's, along with Lehigh Valley Hospital, are actual sponsors of the Music Fest Festival. St. Luke's even encouraged people to attend by promoting a walking challenge from plots to plots. Imagine promoting a festival while forcing masks on our children. At the last board meeting, you voted to make mask wearing optional. On behalf of my children, I ask that you continue to stand up for them and ensure that this year, their education will not be obstructed. My children deserve to finally have a chance to get back on track, and they will not be wearing a mask at this school year, regardless of the board's decision. Thank you for your time.
Tanya Kennedy.
I'm sorry, I thought it was a sign-in sheet. I don't have anything to say. Sorry.
Beth Kramer.
Hi, my name is Beth Kramer. I live at 2932 Greenbrier Lane. I have 2 kids that are going to be in SES this year. I also have a PhD in molecular biology. Obviously, I have a different take on this. So I have 10 years of experience working in the lab with viruses, and I also have training to evaluate data, be critical of findings from scientific studies, and to compile data from multiple different sources to make conclusions. So for the past several months, I've been poring over scientific articles just out of professional curiosity and out of interest of making the best decisions for my family. I'm hopeful about the future of the pandemic in our community. We have vaccines for over 12s, readily available over-the-counter testing, and clearer ideas about how the virus spreads and causes disease. But as bullish as I am about the future of the pandemic at large, I still have concerns about the health of my kids. All of my kids are under 12. I cannot yet provide them with a vaccine that provided with a healthy immune system makes SARS-CoV-2 associated disease vaccine preventable. Ideally, I want my kids vaccinated before they encounter SARS-CoV-2 in the wild to provide a stopgap until they can be vaccinated and protected from the worst effects of the virus. They will be wearing masks to school, and the more people around them who do the same, the safer they will be from the risks associated with the virus. Masks are just a tool, a filtration device that you wear on your face. Mechanical filtration of aerosols and the viruses associated with them has been shown in multiple laboratory settings, and the benefit of masking is well known in healthcare settings. By masking my kids, and potentially you masking your kids, we are lowering the probability that one of them comes in contact with the virus. Masks are the most effective when more people in a group wear them to provide potential source control from an infected person to others in the room. While robust protection against diseases like vaccines are the best, all I can do at this point is put a mask on my kids when I send them into an indoor environment. I also hope the schools will use simple interventions like opening windows to bring in outdoor air to provide proper ventilation. And in addition to the work of aerosol and respiratory virus researchers, I'm basing my decision off the recommendations of 2 pediatricians who emphasize the importance of masks even if they are not mandated. These doctors are people who have cared for my children since their birth, and I trust their advice. I hope the members of our school community continue to choose to get vaccinated to provide a wall of protection around our most vulnerable, unvaccinated people and potentially immunocompromised people. I hope school leaders utilize these resources that the state has recently provided with testing to identify cases within the school and funds to improve ventilation and continue to encourage vaccination and masking amongst our population. Thanks.
Jodi Finney.
I'm not too short. Hello, my name is Jodi Finney. I live at 1430 Harriet Avenue. So I want to reiterate over and over and over and over and over again of parental choice. I don't believe that this board or anyone besides my husband and myself have any rights to make any decisions for our children that we do not approve of. We have done these surveys how many times now? You have heard what the people have to say. You have heard what they had to say when we decided to go back in person, when we moved to moderate, from moderate to substantial, people still wanted to go back. I just don't understand why we continue to do these over and over again when you are getting the same results. If we don't take masks off our kids now, when? When do we take them off? When is it going to be safe by definition? I also want to mention that kids did have effects from these masks. My 9-year-old has a nose full of acne way before he should have a nose full of acne, and it sits along his face on the line where a mask sits, and I wash those by hand every single day. He's not going to school in anything dirty. He also went to the nurse multiple times from February through June for headaches that he has not had an issue with the entire summer. At the elementary school age, they are not equipped to properly handle a mask. Where are they putting their masks at lunch? They're throwing them on the table, they're falling on the floor, they're shoving them in their pocket, and then they're going back on their face. That's not healthy. Also, I would like to mention that at least at Salisbury Elementary School, we have a peanut-free table, right? Because the majority of our students don't have a peanut allergy. So they sit where they would like in the classroom or the lunchroom, and those students with a peanut allergy sit at this table. So if the majority of the Salisbury School District community does not want masks, then I would assume that it would be the minority's option to go elsewhere, sit elsewhere. Maybe we can divide it enough to have masked classrooms and optional classrooms and do it that way. I would also like to say that like all government, big, small, anything where you are voted in, we vote the board in to speak on our behalf, to listen to what we have to say and vote on what the community wants, not to make the decision that you feel is best for us. We all have opinions on what is best for us, and I believe that it is your job to hear that and then represent that, not make the decisions that you think are best for us. I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you very much.
Brian Pojanowski.
Good evening, board. Just want to say up front, I'm really tired, so if I start rambling a little bit, please be understanding, as I'm sure all you guys are tired. Tired of everything we've been living through and have to continue to live through, and the decisions you guys need to make, which I don't believe you take lightly, but I hope you think about it very, very deeply, like all of us have. Doing the research one side or the other, that's important for us as parents, as community members, as board members, to make sure you're doing the work. I think my old football coach used to say, put in the work. Be deliberative. Emily, my wife, mentioned earlier, 2 hours of debate, of discussion between board members at Saucon Valley. There was real robust conversations. There was back and forth. There was questions to the solicitor, questions to the doctor. I'm not sure, is our health professional partner here today? She's not. So we're going to have a discussion about health risks to our kids, and you cannot even reference back to our health director. It's somewhat troubling, but I do appreciate what you guys do, and I do want to say that. But At our last board meeting, I think Mr. Hattinger had posed a question, what changed before voting no to amend to go to mask optional? It was a question with an easy answer after listening to the board meeting. You, the board, asked pointed questions to our health partner regarding risks to our kids. You acknowledged community members' meeting comments and the community survey. You also addressed the ability to learn while masked and bullying issues. You incorporated, again, public comments, and you made an assessment which involved several different factors, right? You're doing public policy here. You're not health policy. Health policy would be a zero-sum game. There's either no COVID deaths or transmissions, or we need to shut everything down. You as a board need to incorporate all factors in your decision, okay? So it's not just the CDC, it's not just Department of Health, it's other concerns as well. And I hope you continue to make those considerations. But I would like to ask, what's changed? It's a great question. What changed since then? All right, what has changed? Have vaccination rates decreased in Lehigh County? If our health partner was here, she would say no, they've actually increased. We have more vaccinated people than we did a month ago. Have COVID-19 deaths increased? Nope. Nope. 0. Rolling 7-day average, Lehigh County. Has cases increased? Yes, they have. And I think we'd all be remiss not to acknowledge that cases have gone up. They've gone up to 73, rolling 7-day average. That's in Lehigh County. Now, I'm sure if you guys have looked at those stats, it's great. Google has a little stat. Every single day you go in it, drop down. Cases, deaths. 73, that's 371,000 residents we have in Lehigh County. 73. So has it gone up? Of course it has. Has the children's ability to learn while being masked somehow increased in the last month? No. Have your concerns that you raised last month, have they dissipated? No. Should you still be considering those? Yes, you definitely should. And I mentioned in the last board meeting about the deliberative nature of the board, and I commented on it earlier. What I hope we see tonight as a community is engagement between board members, conversation, robust conversation. All right, you're a board. It's okay to question other board members. It's okay to be deliberative, but to do a 2-minute soliloquy on anecdotal evidence as opposed to hard data and really facts, I think is a disservice to everybody in this room. So I do hope that you guys came prepared tonight to have a good discussion amongst yourselves. Think about the issues. Think about potential legal issues. I'm thankful that our solicitor is here, so if you guys are so inclined to kind of go down that thread of questioning that some of the comments had, hopefully she can address that. I thank you for your time. Just as a final note here, and it's going in my head, I cannot believe our health partner is not here to help you make these decisions. I believe last month when she said she does not see kids getting it, they do not spread it, they do not die from it. I believe that was eye-opening. When she said that Lehigh Valley is 70% vaccinated rates, and we had comments saying, wow, I didn't realize that. We need those partners here to help you make those decisions, and for her not to be here, it's disappointing from my standpoint being in the community. But I thank you for your time, and hope to have a really good discussion here amongst all you guys. Thank you.
Mr. Dennis, that's the last member signed up for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everybody.
Before we move on, may I just add something?
Certainly.
So just thank you to our community members who have taken the time to come and speak tonight. This is a very polarizing issue, yet another difficult decision, and I read every survey comment. There were hundreds of them, and we have people very polarized. We have people who feel very strongly about the mask, and we have people who feel equally as strong about not wearing a mask. So I appreciate those of you who took the time to come here and share your thoughts with us tonight so that we could consider those, and the board can consider those thoughts in the conversation. And also to those of you who are watching online, we've received many emails and many comments in the survey. You took the time to share that, and we do appreciate that, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Okay, that takes us to 1.9, motion to approve the following minutes, and that would be for the regular board meeting dated July 14th. Can I have a motion to approve them, please?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or conversation regarding that? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to payment of bills. We have general fund expenditures for payroll for $2,094,050.71. Total capital improvement, we have 0. Food service, including SFE, nutritional services, we have a bill for $42,327.25, and a GOB bond proceeds funds for $4,293.29. Okay, do I have a motion to pay them?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any conversation or questions? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to treasurer's reports. We have one for June of '21, and with that, do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions for the treasurer's report? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to report of the Secretary of the Board, Mr. Taylor. Do we have,
Yes, tonight I just want to speak briefly on the Act 65, which takes effect August 29th, so just for a period of time, 11 days from now. And it adds some requirements for school board and public meetings regarding the sunshine law. So we had the sunshine law before, but add some additional items. Some of the highlights for the board and the public to be aware of is that the agenda must be posted on the agency's public website no later than 24 hours in advance of the scheduled start time of the meeting. And we've typically done that, more than 24 hours in advance, but we'll be posting the agenda on our website 24 hours prior to the meeting, and we also post it on the door of our buildings, the public notice and everything. Yeah, it requires the school boards post the agenda at the location and of the meeting and the principal office of the agency, so we will be doing so. Also, school boards must make copies of the agenda available to individuals in attendance at the meeting, which we do have some agendas printed for tonight, and we will continue to do so with the requirements of the new law. There are a few exceptions to so it has to be on the agenda for more than 24 hours for the board to take action on it. There are a few exceptions for emergency business that has a clear and present danger to life and property. Also, business arising within 24 hours of the meeting. If it's de minimis in nature, the board can take action. If it's something that just came up and it's de minimis, which basically means that it does not involve spending funds or entering into a contract or agreement. So there are a few exceptions to the rules, but just so the board's aware that, we need to make sure we're abiding by that. We will be posting the agenda with, the detailed agenda at least 24 hours prior to the meeting for the public and the board to view. Is there any questions from the board?
no?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, that takes us to the Curriculum and Technology Committee Chair, Mrs. Klinger.
Good evening. We have not had a curriculum meeting since June, so I have nothing to report on. Our next curriculum meeting, I believe, is September 1st, following the Operations Committee. But with that, I would like to move item numbers 2.1 through 2.3. 2.1 is an agreement between the Colonial Intermediate Unit 20 and the district to provide Title I equitable services. 2.2 is an agreement between Salisbury Township and the Center for Humanistic Change, which provides liaison services to support our SAP program, which is Student Assistance Program. And 2.3 is to approve a student teacher from DeSales to work at the high school with Ann Snyder from October 25th to December 3rd. With that, I would like to move 2.1 to 2.3.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions for Carol regarding those three items? Okay, seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Klinger. Okay, that takes us to the Operations Committee, and we have items 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, and 3.7. 3.1 is the Health and Safety Plan discussion, and we can open that up for discussion now, then after we're done with the discussion, we could vote for all the line items. So with that, I'd just like to start by saying it is, as our superintendent said, this is a difficult situation. Everybody feels strongly one way or the other, and I do respect everybody's opinion, and we all do. But hopefully the day will come that it won't even be an issue, but nevertheless, we will discuss it now, we'll collaborate, and we'll make a decision relative to the plan moving forward right now. So as far as conversation goes, would anybody like to get started?
May I start, please?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, so I have a few things that I'd like to share for the board and also for the community. Sorry, slight, let's see if this helps. Yeah, I could have if I knew where the button was. It's been a while since I held this controller. All right, hopefully that solves our issue. Yes, very good. All right, so for the board and also for our community members, some information about the survey and also some of the guidance that we've received. So first of all, I want to share a document that we received from the state on August 11th, and the slide deck is embedded here. I'm not going to read the entire slide deck. There's actually a video you can watch if you'd like to watch and hear exactly what the state has shared with the school communities last week. But I would like to just highlight a few items. This information has already been shared with the board, so they've already had a chance to read this. I want to share it with you as well as our family members and community members and staff watching at home. So there are a few slides in here about harm reduction and some overview information. There are some high-level items here about the DOH, the Department of Health, and PDE and their recommendations. So you've heard this, they're recommending vaccination, they're recommending physical distancing, 3 feet to the greatest extent feasible, and they're recommending universal masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors, regardless of vaccination status. Masking is required on school buses per the CDC order. This document talks about school meals, it talks about cleaning, it talks about case reporting, which we are still required to do, isolation, and quarantines. Embedded in this document are some additional resources. For example, this what to do if a student becomes sick, and this actually links out to a CDC requirement, and I realize you can't read that whole thing, but the point is the state has given us guidance on what we need to do when there is a diagnosis at school.
Hey, Lynn, in regard to that, this is a question in regards to like how we operate when we have kids back in school. Can you remind us again of like what are the numbers again that where we actually have to like close school for a day, 4 days, 14 days? I know you might not have that right at your fingertips right now, but I just want to be clear in my head where exactly where are where are the points that we need to protect from is what it comes down to.
So that guidance has changed, and there's some of that embedded in here.
Awesome.
So let me go through this, and then if there are still questions, I'm happy to do
No
my
worries.
best to answer those. Last year, the guidance was based on the level of school size, small, medium, or large. There were a set number of cases. The cases varied by what level of community transmission you had.
Yep.
It's similar, but the cases that are actually increased now. The
Okay.
number of cases in the threshold are increased. Let me see if I can get back into here. For some reason, we got locked out there. All right, I apologize for making you dizzy here as I get back to where I was. Again, talking about vaccination, it gives a definition of when someone is vaccinated. It also indicates this was different information for this year per CDC guidance and the PA HAN 583, which is the health guidance document. If a fully vaccinated person is exposed to someone, that person doesn't need to quarantine according to the state. That person needs to mask in public for 14 days or until they receive a negative test on day 2 or day 5. If the test is positive, the result is positive, the person is isolating for 10 days. So that's different from previous. Some additional information, as you may have heard in the news, and I think we heard here tonight, we are now in the high rate of community level of transmission according to the CDC. If you remember last year, we had 3 levels of community transmission through the state, and now the state has transitioned to using the CDC model, which has these 4 levels. That information is on the CDC website. You can Google it very easily. Community transmission, you can identify your state and your county. I don't want to click out because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get back in. This is a really key piece of information of close contact. Last year, we didn't have very many close contacts in the school setting because we were able to maintain 6 feet distance. And if you were able to maintain 6 feet distance and students weren't within that window or didn't have the mask on off for 15 minutes, they didn't count as a close contact. Now they're identifying here 6 feet for 15 minutes is still the definition, and there are some other factors that matter. They're talking consecutive minutes for the most part, as opposed to cumulative minutes, meaning you have to be this way for 15 minutes, as opposed to you have to have that engagement of that closer span for any 15 minutes in the school day. So there are some different factors here. But in this particular piece of guidance, this is really important for us to think about tonight. This guidance adds the following exception. So in a K-12 indoor classroom setting, the close contact definition excludes students who were within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student if both the infected student and exposed students consistently and correctly wore well-fitting masks. So that makes a difference in the number of students who would be identified as close contacts. It makes a difference, potentially, in the number of students who would have to quarantine. Note the exception doesn't apply to staff or anybody, teachers or other adults, and students age 18 don't count as adults, they count as students. So want to share that piece of information. In this document, and this document is publicly available.
Could you scroll back up just so I could read that exception again? I'm sorry.
I'll let it sit there so people can read it because it's hard when someone's reading it.
So the teacher would be considered a close contact at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay.
They talk about information from the PA health document that our nurses have and have been reviewing and are developing protocols about. They give you information about the isolation period. They give you information about what happens if you test positive, if you're household contact, how the numbers actually start, how many days you would be excluded from school. There's information about what happens if you test positive, if your family member tests positive. There's information about, the state says the school can choose a 14-day exclusion period. We're working with our nurses to create these procedures. They had some procedures drafted, but this came out and now we're revisiting everything that was drafted. Sports and extracurriculars are addressed here.
The Department of Health is providing some supports for schools. One of those supports, one of our parents or guardians or citizens identified, is testing that's available to the school district through the PADOH testing program. I just attended a webinar. I'm attending another meeting tomorrow, so my information is limited, but the bottom line is they're telling us we can utilize them at no cost for screening testing, so pool testing. So 25 kids in a classroom could get tested once a week, and if that group all tests negative, then you perceive everybody as negative. If that test comes back positive, then you retest everybody with a PCR and determine who was a positive case. They just are rolling this out. I know it's late. I know it's late from the state. We're doing our best to learn about it. It is available to us for free. They are also indicating they're going to send staff to do pool testing, and it is voluntary for parents to participate if you would want to have your child participate in pool testing. They're working on information for us, and like I said, we're supposed to get more information tomorrow. We are required to report cases again this year. You saw the email. Every time I sent an email for an active case or a positive case, we tracked historical and active cases last year. Since we started at the beginning of the year sending emails for historical cases, I finished the school year sending emails for historical cases, even though some of those cases were not active. So we will post on our COVID tracker the data for active cases. Active cases are considered when a student is present or a staff member is present during the infectious period, 48 hours prior to the test or 48 hours prior to symptoms. So we are still required to report to the state. The process is a little bit different. This identifies that. They also identify outbreaks. So they're saying 2 or more cases among students or staff without other identified linkages within 14 days in a single class or a team or band. They're asking us to monitor that. And if we have multiple outbreaks, reaching out to the state, like we would have had to do this year in terms of closing schools when we hit that threshold. And DOH would determine if a closure is necessary and the length of that closure. I don't have any more information on that than this at this time. So Joe, this is what you're asking about, and this is from DOH. This is what they're publishing. A maximum 14-day suspension of in-person learning may be recommended by DOH if the following criteria are met. So 5% of students or staff confirmed cases in a 14-day window. SES was considered a small school last year. The middle school and high school were medium schools, just to give you that threshold. We were required to close based on the attestation form last year. I tried to go back and find the document to have the exact numbers, but they've removed it from the site. But I believe it was 4 to 6 cases. So you can see that threshold is significantly increased.
Yeah, but Lynn, I mean, last year we were doing 6 feet. So people sitting in proximity of that student were automatically excluded. This year, the students will be a lot closer. So everyone within proximity of that student in every single class within 3 feet will be counted. It'll be.
If you're under 3 feet, and most places we believe we can get 3 feet.
Oh, okay.
Most places we believe we can get 3 feet. We won't have 3 feet in the cafeteria at the high school. There will be some classes with higher numbers, particularly at the high school level, that would not have 3 feet, but most of our classrooms with the number of students, we will get very close to 3 feet.
Yeah, but you gotta have a mask as well, right?
You have to have a mask as well in order to do what you're saying.
Otherwise, they'll be counted in the population, so you can get to that number rather quickly. If one student, and they go to 4 classes, and they have 4 people sitting around them,
it's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's
now,
possible.
just going through the scenario, what it could be.
And the way it's phrased there is it's subjective to the number of days is subjective by the DOH at that point in time. So like say we do hit the threshold of 25, but they see it was like it's over the 14-day window, they could say it's less, or would they, or is it automatically 14
It
days?
says maximum, so I'm assuming they could say less, and that's consistent with what happened last year.
And there's that going.
There's the volume's on over here.
I'm not sure what we did differently. Is it that one? Sorry. Okay, I turned off airplane, maybe that's what was doing it.
Yeah, that is strange.
I'm not sure. I don't know, we used it for 10 minutes, it was fine. We watched Netflix. Let me. Let me try to connect again. I apologize to our family members at home too.
Oh yeah, that woke some kids
Okay,
up.
I don't hear it.
Stand in the middle.
So let me just quickly finish because I'm just about finished with these items and then I can disconnect. So back to the. I'm gonna disconnect. Lynn, can we just turn this screen off? Do you think it's that TV? I think we're just gonna turn it off. Just mute it. Oh, it wasn't all the way down yet. Thank you.
There we go.
I think it's your fault.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
All right, we're good. Thank you for your patience at home. So in addition to that 5%, also they're saying if you have 3 classrooms or if you have 3 core areas, core groups, teams, or it could be clubs or something. So that's also a possibility.
So Lynn, as opposed to last year where there was a definitive amount and these are the actions you have to take, now we have to contact them for what their recommendation, or what they're going to tell us what to do at that point in time.
And to some extent, they told us last year as well.
Okay.
Because we signed the attestation form saying we're going back, we were obligated to follow that case guideline and call them and say, here's what I have, what am I required to do?
Gotcha.
Do we have to sign another one of those forms this year?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
But you're getting more information tomorrow. That might
The information I'm
impact
getting
us.
tomorrow is related to the testing program.
Okay.
But I honestly have no idea when we're getting more information. It sort of just comes and then we get it. So there could also be a suspension of a sport or activity if there are outbreaks there. Schools might consider short-term closures if you need time to monitor close contacts. If we have an outbreak and we don't have enough time to reach everybody, we could consider closing for a day. We would shift to fully online instruction. You know, clearly we all want to have all of our kids in school every day to the maximum extent possible. So what we can do to make that happen.
Lynn, can I ask a question? If you can back up a little bit. Am I reading that if we have staffing issues, that could warrant shutting down classrooms?
It could warrant shutting down classrooms. It could warrant shifting to the virtual if we have a lot of staff on quarantine, if they can't come in. We have a lot of vaccinated staff, so they may be on quarantine for a shorter period, or they may come in masked for that 2 to 5 day window where they have to get tested, and if they test positive, then they're in isolation. If they test negative, then they can resume.
Would that decision be on us to switch to virtual, or does the DOH become involved if we have staffing?
I think we would be looking at that. DOH would already be involved because they would have the information from the cases. Because we have to report every case, and every time we report a case, we have to report the close contacts also.
So contact is not just only students, this could very well involve staff.
Yes.
So it requires shutdown.
Yeah, Mary, I think it's like any other labor shortage at that point in time, where if you don't have enough teachers to be in the classrooms, and they can teach if they are at home, I mean, that's just the case.
It comes down to continuity.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
gotta have continuity. You can't just shut a class down for 5 days. Nobody gets caught.
And nothing.
Caught. Yeah, you have to have some form of continuity.
Certainly the alternative to continue with children getting the same lessons and message and coming across if a teacher can do it from home. Like switch, instead of in person, their class is
Yeah,
now
I mean,
virtual.
we certainly want to prioritize in-person instruction. That's what we're working towards. That's, you know, what we really want to do.
Thank you.
I'm at a loss.
Still doing it.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing we want
Can
to.
I ask everybody just to check that all the laptops, everybody's volumes are down on those, because maybe that, I don't know if anybody changed it midway through the meeting. Or if you opened the live stream and you didn't mute it. Tom, do you have any suggestions? No?
Yeah. So you're muted.
I just Does anybody have the live stream, do any board members have the live stream playing that you, if you close it? Okay. So I was able to share everything from that document. Board members have previously seen it. It is available publicly to our community as well.
And Lynn, as well as the survey that you sent out, is that available to the public?
So I'm going to share that right now.
Okay.
I was hoping we were going to solve those sound problems. All right, let me try to share the community data because people are probably waiting to see that from the survey. So first of all, a huge thank you to our community members, those of you here tonight and those of you online. We had over 1,000 responses from community members, parents, guardians, staff members, and students as well. These results I took are like 12:08 today. So we said we were closing it at noon. At 12:08, I pulled this information and I closed the survey. So at that point, people were not able to continue to respond. Pretty even breakdown here of the 3 different grade spans. And this is what we had in terms of people being in favor of the mask or face coverings. The blue is the yes, the red is the no, and the orange is I'm not sure. So it's a pretty even split. This is a little different from where we saw the results in July. And I know one of our guests said, why survey us again? We had additional information. The context changed. Our community is asking us to take input and to be transparent, and that's why we surveyed again. So, and I appreciate, over 1,000 people took the time to share their thoughts. And that brings us to some conversation with the board.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank
Sorry,
you. No worries.
Okay, so I just have one question, Lynn. As far as if we do have to switch the virtual, or switch to remote, whatever you want to call it, how much time does that take to prep for that if we ever had to go down that road?
believe it was only Salisbury Elementary School that we did it at the last, we did it like the night before, or we may have told people the day before. Teachers are prepared to utilize Zoom. They'll set up Zoom classrooms. They use Google Classroom or Seesaw, and we'll have that contingency plan in place. Again, I want to emphasize we're really working towards in-person learning, and we don't want to make this shift. We want to keep as many people in the building as possible, but we will be prepared, and teachers have the knowledge and skills to be able to do that.
And question for you too, just so myself and hopefully the public understands it, our real focus is in-class instruction, and that's what we want to do, and we're moving forward with that. Being so is when a student, if they do get ill, or if they do have to go home for 10 days or 2 to 5 days, they'll be sent home with instruction. There will be no in-class online service available for them when they are sick and have to go home. They'll have to do the work by themselves and then return to class when they're healthy. And if that is where they get multiple times, they could be out 20 days without instruction at that point in time. And we wouldn't have it available unless the school shut down and had to go to remote, and only then it would happen. But on an individual basis, as they get ill and as they get sick, that would be the MO that we'd be going with forward. So what they had
Similar to
prior.
what happens now.
Right. But we did before, when a person got sick before COVID, they got home and they had instruction, they had to make it up, and come back to school with it. So that will be the engagement as opposed to what it was prior.
At this time,
Yeah.
yes. And that's similar to what happened at SES last year. The middle school and high school, because it was, we were live streaming all of the classes, the teacher was staying in that spot. We had quite a few families who chose to stay online, so that was a different context. But this would be the same situation if students were out for another illness, that they would receive that instruction.
Yeah, and I do that just for clarity, so people understand, since we had that difference for a term, what it means now in this coming school year to be out for a length of time, to be ill, whether it's COVID or whatever it is, you'll get home instruction, they'll send you with papers, you can follow it with your teacher, but it's similar to what it was before. There will not be an online option for students to learn and get engaged with their teacher.
Yeah, that's a significant difference at the secondary level.
Can you explain the lunch scenario for each of the three?
So elementary and middle school are able to get 3 feet distance. The high school is not able to get 3 feet distance and have everybody in the building.
And obviously, while they're eating, they will not have masks on
Yes.
regardless.
But will they sit by the same, they'll have assigned seats in the
We'll have
lunchroom
assigned
again?
seats.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's to help with contact tracing if you have to do that.
right, yeah.
And they all can be housed in the cafeteria?
It will in essence go back to what it was previously at the high school level.
Except they're assigned. They can't
Except
move
they're
around.
assigned, yeah, that's a difference,
Yeah.
yeah. Except they're assigned and they have to stay at that table.
So I have a question that I heard this comment a couple of times, and I've heard it very broadly, and I don't know exactly what it means or what it could mean. If we were to ask individuals or students to wear masks, there's a possibility of legal issues. What does that mean? Is that, I mean, what are the possible legal ramifications of doing that?
There's authority, it's our opinion, and it's the opinion of PSBA also. We have members, solicitors, law,
Can you all hear?
No.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, you
Sorry,
gotta
I'll
speak
speak up.
People at home can't hear. Okay, thank you for that.
You want to give her a mic?
All right, is this better? Okay. It's our position, and as part of the Pennsylvania School Board's Solicitors Association position, that school districts do have the legal authority to require masking. There are a number of places in the public school code that does give districts the authority to make reasonable rules and regulations. One of the Dillon's rule that one of the senators at the recent August 6th committee meeting referenced in support of his position that school districts do not have the legal authority is called Dillon's rule. His statement of it is only one piece of the puzzle. School districts have the right to act based upon statutory authority, but we also have the right to take reasonable actions necessary that are not necessarily spelled out in the public school code to exercise that authority. So when you're looking at our requirements for a whole host of issues, diseases, measles, lice, all of those things, we have the right to maintain a safe environment for our school community. So I do think that you do have a legal right to require masks. Whether you choose to do so is on an individual school district basis. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, no, very much so.
Christine, are we vulnerable relative to?
Georgia, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think you have to be closer to the mic.
Are you? Are you relative to a kid catching it? Like I don't think there's any way to prove that it was caught in the school. I mean, is that a liability issue that we have to deal with, or?
Wasn't that the whole idea of contact tracing?
That's part of it. I think the contact tracing is more not coming from a legal perspective. It's coming more from a health and safety perspective. But yeah, I mean, if a student catches it and dies, there is potentially a lawsuit that can be brought against the school district. Now, it's a pretty high standard, and the district would have a better defensible argument if it does follow the DOH guidelines that are out there than if it doesn't. But that being said, I'm not aware of any cases out there that there's actually been a decision. This is somewhat, there's not a lot of precedent out there, but there's two theories that school districts can be liable on. One is under the Political Subdivision Tort Claims Act. So, short of there being a defect in the property, and a kid catches it for some reason, it's kind of hard to pierce that. But there's something called the state created danger theory. And if the district, there's a number of elements of it, but one of them is if the district's actions shocks the conscience, or if we put a child in a more dangerous position by acting or not acting. So everything's really case specific, but to answer George's question, yeah, somebody could file that lawsuit. We may get it kicked out, but you'd still have to incur the expense of defending against that, all the soft costs dealing with your staff members being involved, and then obviously, advertisement and things like that.
Thank you.
Could you comment, a lot of school districts, and Salisbury's not alone, are looking at this issue, and a lot of school districts that were similar to Salisbury, considering not masking, a lot of them have changed. Could you review which ones have changed direction recently?
I am aware that there are a couple who have recently changed direction, and there are some considering it.
Right.
I know that our community has been talking about East Penn received a letter. I think it's really important for us to think about our school community and our context as we make this decision. And anybody in the news or on Facebook has seen all of the posts from different families in different districts having very similar conversations, and they may be making changes in the next couple of weeks prior to the start of school. I think they're having these same conversations. I don't know what happened at Saucon Valley that somebody else mentioned last evening or earlier.
Lynn, I've been hearing some other alternatives for start the school year with masks and give it 4 or 6 weeks just to get kids back in place, see if there's outbreaks. Is that really a reality that is true? That, do you know of any doing that? It's only for...
So that's actually the, thank you, Mr. Brackett. That's actually the recommendation of our health partner, which was provided to us in writing and was provided to the board in writing. St. Luke's is recommending you start the year with 4 to 6 weeks in a universally masked environment. They had another call yesterday and solidified their opinion, but I have not received anything in writing from that call.
I have a question that I would like to ask the health partner, because I don't think any of us is going to be able to answer it. But let's say we will move forward and we kept our decision as we had made it last month, where it was a parental decision, and 49% of the people, of the children wore masks, and 51% did not. I wonder how that would affect the rate of transmission and the possibilities of, is it, what's it going to do? Bring it down even lower than it is right now? It might, That'd be a thought. I don't know how I would look, how I could look that up, or directly ask the health partner.
I mean, I can certainly ask the health partner that question. I can ask St. Luke's. I think your question is, if some kids mask, does that help lower the percentage?
Even let's say if half the kids mask, will that help?
Yeah, I haven't, I have an opinion, but my opinion doesn't really, isn't really, relevant. I'm not a doctor.
I don't think anybody else knows, but I hope they would speak up if they did. But yeah, that's something I was thinking about. I know one thing I want to remember is that I want to trust that all parents in Salisbury have the best interest of children at heart, and that the decision that they make is going to be based on what they think is best for their child and others. I really know that that's the way people feel and think and operate. I don't mistrust any parent along the way, and I want us to know that we're partners with the parents when we make our decisions about this kind of a thing. We only want what's best for all, and we want to do with what we want to do, what they want, what they vote for us, and what they want us to do, and so that's the way I'm thinking. I'm having faith in the parents and what they feel is right.
Kelly just peeked in and said they can't hear you at home if you're not using the mic. So we just.
That's good, because I was stumbling over my words.
Causing the feedback, so I think this side of the room, like Sam, Audrey, it's difficult to hear you guys. So you may have to move the mic.
They're all on, so I'll just move them around. Thank you.
Well, I will just repeat that I want us to have confidence that the parents will make the right decisions, as well as, and I hope that they have the confidence in us to make the right decision, the best decision.
I, of course, wrote a prepared statement, so I will read that. I consider rereading what I said at the last meeting because my position hasn't changed, but in truth, the data on the Delta variant has solidified my stance. I assure you I carefully read all 1,029 responses to the latest survey and every email sent to our board. I maintain that no board member is a medical expert, and the guidance from our chosen health network, St. Luke's,
Hold on a second.
the American Academy. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Can we try that? Start again?
Try that, yeah.
Do I have to start over? Okay. All right. I considered rereading what I said at the last meeting because my position hasn't changed, but in truth, the data on the Delta variant has solidified my stance. I assure you I carefully read all 1,029 responses to the latest survey and every email sent to the board. I maintain that no board member is a medical expert, and the guidance from our chosen health network, St. Luke's, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the CDC all align and very clearly state that everyone in a public school building, regardless of vaccination status, should be masked at this time. With every decision, I always try to keep our most vulnerable students first and foremost in my mind, and if we decide not to mandate mask wearing, we will be excluding those children with underlying health issues from attending in-person school. We're a public school charged with educating all of our students. Let's stay focused on our objective, which in my mind is having in-person classes for as much as possible, for as long as possible this year. Having students unmasked would force students to be classified as a close contact, as we discussed. In the event of a positive COVID case in a classroom, close contacts would have to quarantine, which is counter to the primary objective of keeping kids in school. By sending your child to school unmasked, the unmasked students are putting the masked students at higher risk because the protection a mask affords is less when there's more virus in the atmosphere. That action is contrary to civil society. In civil society, we understand that there are certain freedoms we give up, such as we don't run the red light, not only because we could get ourselves killed, but because we could kill someone else. Let's not fail our children.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick recess just for 5 minutes. If people want to take a walk, the restrooms are far down at the end of the hall if you need a break, and we'll come back right at 9:07.
We're going to come back to the same topic.
Same topic, yep. We're just taking a quick recess.
Biological break. Yeah, I know, I'm afraid there might be a big run on it. Biological break. Yeah, I wonder if we should do more time. I was thinking about that. Do we want to study that Department of Health paper?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really, they all say the same stuff over and over.
Right. I think the thing that I want to prove, and it's really hard to teach this one. It's really hard to teach. It's really hard for the children to hear you and understand you. You're teaching them phonics, and
It's not even less, kids.
Right. It would be a lot easier.
It would be easier to keep them in school.
Right. I would like to see some kind of a compromise too. Masks in the classroom, masks not outside. Masks, breaks, at your desk or 3 feet away.
I had the same question. Okay, 50%.
Yeah.
50%. What happens? So what happens? Do we have a higher risk?
Yeah. I don't know. I knew nobody would know. I also didn't like the way I was stumbling over my words. I'm usually better, but I wasn't saying anything. You don't stumble. Yeah, it's pretty great. Well, we did.
You did.
Yeah.
Need a cakewalk.
And no matter what.
Need a cakewalk?
Why?
Yeah.
Hey, how'd you know I was on break?
We're just waiting for a couple more people to come back into the meeting. And Mr. Smith, if you want to start. All right, so before we took a quick break, we had some board members share some comments. Are there any other questions that people would like to talk about? You're okay with that?
Yeah, I just say, with some of the emails and some of the comments that were made, I think Mr. Brackett might help out with this, but I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, Bill, we have opened up our outside air dampers with all the buildings to bring in more outside air. Has that been done, or will that be done?
We have not planned to do that up to this point. We didn't last year because we were only running 50% capacity. So we were bringing air enough in the classroom for up to 30 people and only maintaining 10 to 15 at any point. We were bringing in more air than we really needed for the population at that point. We can increase the amount of air coming in at both the high school and the Truman. We have not made that decision. Glenn and I were actually in discussions about that today. Bringing additional air into the middle school is not an option because of that style of system.
Yeah, understood. Now, if that obviously in the winter and summer, mainly in the winter, will drive up energy costs. That being said, can the ESSER funds be used to supplement the additional cost because of the outside air dampers being open?
If it's purely electricity charges, we'd have to see the eligibility. Sometimes equipment costs and improvements would be covered, but we'd have to check and see the eligibility for the actual electricity, because we'd have to try to justify that it was that caused the increase in energy consumption.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that, the safety of the kids comes first. I was just curious relative to the extra funds. All right. I guess whoever hasn't spoken yet, I don't know if you want to.
I'll jump out there.
Right.
So, I don't think anybody's ever said they can't hear me. So originally, the last time when we talked about this at the last meeting, and we voted on masks optional, we were in a slightly different place. I have given it more thought, and I have given it back and forth in my head as to what is the right thing to do. At the end of the day, I keep coming back to something that I hear Lynn say a lot, as far as how do we keep our kids in the building as long as possible, and hopefully the entire year, and what steps need to be taken in order to do that. And according to all the information that is in front of me, I have to make a decision on what I think is the best path forward. And what I see that is having universal masking. It eliminates the chances of bullying. It makes sure that teachers don't have to decide who has the mask on, who doesn't have a mask on. And so you're removing that policing feature there. But at the more important time is it's giving us the opportunity to keep everybody without a positive case as much as possible. So that at the end of the day, yes, I understand that kids, when they get it, are not getting as sick, but we're not dictated by how sick they get. If they have it, they have it, and that counts as a case. And when we get to a certain number of cases, we're no longer allowed to be in the school. So how do I keep all the kids in school as long as possible, hopefully the entire year? And that would be for me to support universal masking in the classroom. It is obviously a very polarized topic in our district, in our country. And at the end of the day, I can see both sides of it. But what I'm saying from the decision and the vote that I have to cast at any given time, how do I keep our kids in the best educational situation possible? And I believe that's in the classroom. And I believe that if we have to wear masks to do it, we have to wear masks to do it. So. if the topic comes up about changing it, I'm willing to have that vote whenever we're capable of doing it.
I'm going to piggyback right off of that, so I will take that. This is the third school year that we're dealing with COVID, the third. I would love for this to be the last school year that we're dealing with COVID, but we don't get to decide that. You know, we just have to do what's within our power to help keep our kids in the building and safe and healthy. I mean, I really thought after our last meeting, I was like, okay, we've turned a corner. This is great. And then that next week rolled around and the CDC dropped their revised guidance, and I literally had a pit in my stomach. Like, I have been a wreck the last few weeks, knowing that what's right for our district is to go back to universal masking. I'm hoping, you know, based on St. Luke's recommendation, that it's just the first 4 to 6 weeks. You know, I expect that we'll talk about this every single month. You know, we're going to keep our eye on the numbers. We have gotten a lot of data from the CDC, from the state, from our health partners. You know, we know that the best defenses against COVID are getting our community vaccinated and masking. And according to St. Luke's data from August the 3rd in Lehigh County, for those eligible to be vaccinated between 12 and 19 years old, the vaccination rate is only 31%. That's really low. So I'm hoping that we can encourage our community to continue getting vaccinated. I know the district has sent out information on vaccination clinics coming up. But for right now, like everyone's been saying, our goal is to get our kids in the building and to keep them there. So I think we need to do that through masking.
I'm sorry, Sarah, that 31% that you brought up included what?
Kids 12 to 19.
Age group.
Okay.
12 to 19-year-olds. 31% vaccination rate in Lehigh County.
You have to wonder, I'm just curious, how many of those parents got vaccinated? The parents of that age group within that particular family got, I'm sure that.
If you would like
if
more
you
data.
have that, if you have that.
I'll pull the mic back over. A survey says 20 to 24-year-olds, 45% vaccination rate. 25 to 64, which I think is a pretty big range, but it's what we have, is 63%. 65 plus is 92% vaccinated.
Okay, thank you.
Because the FDA hasn't approved it yet. I'm sure a lot of parents are.
For 12 to 19, they have. Well, time out. Let me, emergency certification.
So, there's a lot of issues, and we're not, I mean, we're not trying to judge all those issues and people making choices, and I'm not. I know everybody would think, the way I voted, that I want masks. I don't want masks. I don't like them. I don't even agree with all the stuff. I never did. And I've been in a lot of environments where there's been masks, in Tokyo, in the Middle East, everywhere, with a lot worse stuff than COVID. But it does do something. I don't know exactly what, but it does. And here I'm not dealing with how I feel about it and what I want. I'm dealing with what's safest for the parents and their children especially. How do we keep them in school? That's the biggest thing, because we're finding out them not being there is the worst possible scenario. At least I think I'm finding that out, that is what we don't want. So if it means having to wear a mask, this is not an issue of being a patriot or not being a patriot. I'm not taking away anyone else's rights or anything like that. I mean, I was in the Navy for 40 years, guys. I am a patriot. So anyone who thinks that I'm not, you don't know what you're talking about. But here, this is not an issue of any of that stuff. want the parents to be able to make their own decisions. But this, you see the thing, 50-50. We're gonna be wrong one way or the other. It doesn't matter what we decide, 50% of you at least are gonna be unhappy and think that we don't care. It's just not true. If you knew all the sleepless nights that many people, and Sarah talks about herself, I mean, I've seen more tears come out of this woman's eyes than any other board member here at the board meetings, because it is so stressful on her. And because of her own children. I mean, she's not just deciding for your children, she's deciding for her own. So I think we need to, with the best information that we know of, that we have, and our partner, which has been giving us information for those who feel that they're not giving us info, they are, and we are asking, is telling us that we should do this, the universal masking. And I, like last time, which went against, which I said how I felt. I said I think we need masking because of what I read. I again believe that we need to go with the masking, at least for the first 4 to 6 weeks, whatever the universal masking thing was that they required. Because that's, I mean, that's where we're putting our faith right now, that they know what they're doing. And they're helping us to decide in areas that we don't have expertise. And I know there are parents that have more expertise than I do on this, but I don't mind saying I don't have expertise in this. And I am only doing it based on what I believe is safest for your children. So.
Thank you, David.
Just, I'm not trying to, just to clarify one of my points, I'm speaking specifically about indoors. Outdoors, I'm not outdoors.
Yes, good clarification.
Yeah, they said that.
Yeah.
Just so we're,
guidance.
Yeah, they did say that,
all on the
didn't
same
they?
page here.
Yeah.
Sam, would you like to go next?
Sure. Is this working? Can they hear me with this?
Are you gonna sing?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna sing, because I can't. No, we had the meeting about a month ago, and I was focused at not having our kids wearing masks, and what we voted on was the right thing to do. A lot's changed in that period of time, and there's a lot of information that's come down, and as Sarah talked about, Joe, Dave, we've been getting inundated with a lot of information. My life's turned around. I was going to be in Cleveland today visiting clients, but all that got turned around because that all changed. They no longer allow that, and we are masking at my place of employment, and we're back to 6 feet. And we're doing Zoom meetings again, and we've taken a step backwards. So I think we have to take it all in consideration, because the number one thing that we understand, and we know as a board as we went through this last year and a half, is the best place for our kids are in school, in front of their teachers. And yes, it's not the best, and I'll be first to say, for them to have a mask on, hearing your teachers, understanding them, is not the best. But we have to balance the safety of them staying in school and being in school and learning in school with the risks. And we're talking about something that's going to constantly be reviewed. So if today you walk away and you're the 50% that isn't happy, we're talking about 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to see where we're at, see if we hit the peak. They're talking about the peak coming. They're talking about the peak already happening in England, and they're moving past that. Maybe we'll hit that. So this is something that's a moving target, and we have to make a decision. What's the best thing to do now for the total population, for the greater good, for all students? And that may not be what's best for your student today. And today you say, well, that's not best for my kid. And I understand that. And there's a strong argument to be made on both sides with this. But we have to make a decision what we think is best for all students at this time. And at this time, I think it's best to go for universal masking for the next 4 to 6 weeks and see where we're at. And then hopefully allow us to rescind that and get back to where we have in-person instruction without these masks going forward. It'd be great to have that happen, but unfortunately today, for me, is not that day. And I'll have to be changing my vote and supporting the recommendation from St. Luke's and what we've talked about. And that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Sam. Becca, we already heard from you. You have any additional comments?
No, I just think it's the time for us to help out each other. Like, look out for our fellow community members. And if this is what the experts are saying, you know, it's not a big ask to put a mask on. I understand it's not fun. Nobody loves this. My husband flies an airplane. has to fly it, has to have people arrested because they don't wear the mask, all that stuff. Not a fun time. However, that's what the experts are telling us to do. And, like I said with the, the stop sign analogy, there's things we all have to do that we don't necessarily like. You don't drive 100 miles an hour down the road either. You don't drink and drive because that doesn't just affect you. And I don't want to put other kids at risk when there is a reasonable option to try and prevent it. And we want, for goodness sake, we're back in the classroom, and that was like eyes on the prize. Last year, the target was the classroom. Now it's the classroom. Now now everybody's mad about the masks. I mean, it's always going to be something, potentially. And I would just like us to, we're trying to educate the kids and give them the best possible education that we can for everybody. I don't want parents whose children have health conditions to say, guess what, that just excluded me. I can now not send my kid into that public school because it is too risky. I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that's what we're charged to do.
Thank you, Becky. Mary?
Last month, I voted to do optional. The vote prior to that, it was what we knew on hand, wear a mask. I can only go with all the information we keep receiving. I have read every document sent to us, all the parent surveys, conversations held with community members that see me in the grocery store and stop you. I probably have more in-depth conversation, and my husband's doing what took 2 hours to go pick up a couple of things. But I feel so strongly that we should not be in this position to have to decide. We're not the experts. We have to listen to the experts. And I truly, truly didn't even know 100% what my vote was going to be tonight. When I saw the parent survey, and we had a flip, that 49% of our parents want masks, which half of the community do I vote for? Or vote how they want me to vote? This is so hard, and I'm there with Sarah being pit in my stomach, not getting sleep, falling asleep thinking about our kids. I may not have a child in the district at this moment, but I did. And my passion is for the students of this district. I see these little people up until school just closed every week in the school, and coming to read to them every single week, to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, the virtual class, all in a row. I see how they're adapting. They don't want them on. Some are okay with them. Some are having difficulty without them. One of my big concerns, and I'm sorry if I'm taking like a whole lot of time here, but one of my biggest concerns was our special fragile children. And I am on the IU board, and on the pandemic team. And I hear what they're doing for the special needs children. It's not the most optimum, but they're in person. They deal with our students who are sent there with hearing issues, speech issues, and they're in a clear mask. They're doing what they can to help our special needs children. And that's one of my concerns, that we can still keep continuing to give the children with special needs the best we can give them, in addition to our regular ed children. Give them the best education we can, and right now that's in person. Get them back in the building. And if it means 4 weeks of a mask until we can see what's going on, then the folks that are relying on us, who are showing their numbers, who are making these comments,
the emails we have read that have said, we want universal masking, then I have to vote for that. My concern is, and I'm probably going to use the wrong word, my concern is the comments I've heard tonight that said, we're not wearing them anyway. What's going to happen? How do we do that? They're mandating kids have to wear the mask on the bus, if I'm not mistaken. CDC
That's a
says you wear them on the bus.
requirement.
So if you're wearing them on the bus and you get to school and take them off, what's going to happen? What do we do with a refusal?
What's the enforcement?
What do we do?
Call parents and make them pick them up, right?
That's what a lot of districts are
What can we do,
struggling with.
Christine?
There are some districts that are going to
Preclude entry of the students, or allow the students at least to come into the office and call a parent to pick them up. There are some districts who are considering counting any absences due to not wearing a mask as unexcused absences to be dealt with at truancy court. There's a whole host of options out there now, because I can't tell you how successful any of them are going to be. But if it's a requirement to wear a mask, you can prohibit entry into the school. There are other options for parents for compulsory school attendance. It could be cyber schooling. It could be a home education program. That would be a choice. But that's the negative side of having a mandate and having individuals who would be unwilling to follow the rules that are imposed.
But I'd like to say something. I don't want to be bullied into that. Like, we have other rules at the school that have to be followed. This would just be another one. And for people to say they're going to send their kids in here, be like, if you're in inappropriate clothing, for example, there's a policy for that. We have policies and you have to follow it. This isn't, free-for-all. So I feel very strongly about that. If we make that position, we will have to figure out, the process, but that should not stop us from making a decision.
I don't think it should stop us at all, but I do think we should give it some careful thought as to how we
Yeah.
apply it.
That's one of the pieces that has me concerned. And I was quite proud to hear our students get up and talk. And one says yes and one says no. So there's a difference of opinion even with our own students who can express a little more than a kindergartner can about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And the secondary atmosphere was different for how they're taught and how they had to be in school than the elementary. The parents, even with the difference of opinion, but still saying thank you and know we're in a tough spot, and this is just so hard. And I'm surprised I'm not crying in person, because this district is such a passion for me. I probably should have been a teacher and get paid than a volunteer and be on the board. But that's my soapbox.
Thank you, Mary. Audrey, you have anything more to say?
Nothing different to say, and it has been hard, and the 50% who want it and the 50% who don't want it make it even harder. I still am going to side with the idea that that parents have a choice, and if I'm given that choice, I would probably tell my student, if I had children in the district, which I did, have children prior to this in the district until they grew up, I would tell them to wear the mask as their parent, and I would, expect them to do that. I think that if it seems like it's going to go through, that we're going to have a mask mandate, from what I'm understanding as we went the round table, I think we need to have a clear expectations that we are going to revisit it in the 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. I think we also have to have clear decisions based on not just inside and outside, but also other times of the day, where we could have opportunities for students and teachers to take the masks off.
as an elementary school teacher who taught with a mask on and a shield all of last year in person, it was really difficult to teach. It was really difficult to gain attention for the first graders, and it was a challenge to teach phonics in particular, but really everything. Just being heard was hard. It was hard for the children to understand what I was saying, and it was hard for me to understand what they were saying. I mean, we survived it, and I still formed relationships with the kids, and I think that they did a great job, and they really benefited from being in school. So the point that Sarah and Joe made about the goal and is to have our kids in school. I think that is our goal. However, I'm still going to vote for parental decision for optional mask wearing. I just don't think it's going to pass with my vote. So yeah, let's just be real clear about what we do when we put this vote through as to what the actual times parameters are for wearing masks.
Thank you. Carol.
It's my turn. I have no clue.
Carol, before you,
I have a big mouth, Lynn.
Thank
You know that.
No.
Yes, I do. I don't know how to vote. I think we all have to remember that this decision we make tonight, and it looks like it's going to be masked, is a fluid decision, that it has to be revisited in 4 to 6 weeks, and hopefully in the next week or two, we'll hit the peak and start going down so that we can look at this differently. I'm on the fence. I understand the mask will keep our kids in school, and I was the whole time last year saying we got to get these kids in school, got to get the kids in school, we got to keep them in school. And the easiest way, it appears, to keep them in school is to mask them, because if someone does get it, it's like whisper down the alley. We just have, it would be like a domino effect of how many people would have to be quarantined and out of school if they didn't have the mask on. I get that. I understand parental choice. One question I would like St. Luke's to answer is what Audrey said. Okay, we make it optional, so 50% wear masks and 50% don't. Does that increase our chances of more of a spread of the virus or not? And is it a big increase or just a slight increase? Then that would make everybody happy. I don't think bullying in this time period, the way life is right now, is an issue with, well, your son wears a mask and my son doesn't. I don't think that's going to be a problem, because you go out in the world and some have them on and some don't, just like here. So I can't make a decision. I don't know. I'm on the fence. I see both sides of it.
Lynn, is it appropriate, or can we ask if we're voting on this again, or coming up, sorry, thanks, Audrey. Such a hard decision and needing some health input, could we ask our partner to be here the next meeting with us?
Sure, we can ask the school position. The school position is one member of the
Or somebody from the health?
Of the St. Luke's team. The St. Luke's team conducts regular panels with the superintendent group. I don't know if
The St. Luke's team would be willing to attend,
but I can certainly ask that question and get
in writing, and we can certainly ask our school physician, who provided some insight based on her
practice. Whereas St. Luke's
globally at the whole health network.
Okay, thanks. I mean, we all chat.
Mary, before you go, can I piggyback on that too? Is there a way to have, if somebody from the St. Luke's team does come, if they are pediatric based, it'd be a little bit more helpful as well? Because general practice is wonderful. It is. But we're literally talking about kids here. So it would be helpful. I don't know if it's possible, but we don't get it unless we ask. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Especially this year is supposed to be different than other years. I mean, last year.
Sorry, Mary.
Yeah.
No,
the-
that's okay.
The Delta, not the Delta, but the COVID variant really didn't affect children as greatly. And this year, they're talking about a lot higher infection rates among children. So it'd be interesting to see what they're seeing in our community and if that's really happening.
I just have one more thing too. When she was speaking at the meeting, one of my friends who's a physician was pointing out, there is she was saying she hadn't seen, Dr. Fabian hadn't seen a lot of COVID cases. However, there's a screening process, so if you have a family practice, you won't see cases. They're already being screened out. So that was, not necessarily information that affected how many cases there were in the area. It was just her sort of particular practice, so.
What I was also saying was, and I'm sure we've all done it, I mean, I was at my own physician's office and I did so tell me what you think. And of course, I'll probably get charged for a long visit than a normal visit, but just listening to my own family physician, and he's on a panel of doctors who don't automatically, as he put it, poo-poo the ideas or the claims of things, that they do the investigative type research into, well, this does this, and this is going to mean this. And it was really good to hear him give the input from what he's been involved with in this forum. And, even from him, it's mask. It's not just protecting yourself, it's protecting somebody else. You may be vaccinated, but another family member may not be. This is just so hard, and I can tell you from where I work, and I handle staffing, the call-off numbers again of staff are increasing tremendously, but it's not themselves. It's the child. Daycares are closing. Classrooms in the daycares are closing because children are getting it. And I see it every day with call-offs from team members, that it's now the whole family being affected because a child has gotten it. And that's all.
Okay, I'm thinking like Carol was, I'm on the fence, but nevertheless, I'm going to commit myself to a decision. I'm going to go with the will of the board, and my vote's going to be for the mandate, the masking. My primary reason for that is, as was said before, having the kids in the classroom, to me, is the most important point, and I think this can help do it. And it is fluid. We are going to rethink this, whether it's the next meeting, or I know we're going to keep constant track of it. And we've proven the fact that we do shift the other way if we see the cases improve. And I see us possibly doing that again. So as of now, I'm going to vote for the mandated masking. And let's hope next month things change. But nevertheless, we have to keep the kids in the classroom, because that's where the biggest problem is, them staying home. We don't want that to happen again. So that's how I feel about that.
George, can we I guess officially is not the right word, but promise to keep this topic on every board meeting until it's not an issue? Like a standing one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We'll just make
We
sure
had
that-
intended to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've been doing it, but we haven't said it's a standing, I don't know.
Consider it a standing item.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
the way the board agenda is written, this is listed as a discussion. So if the board wants to make a motion to amend the plan, we would need a motion to amend the plan, a second to do so. I need to actually amend the plan to indicate what we've said, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Okay, Becky, a second?
What's the motion?
Okay, I'm sorry. The motion will be to change the current masking policy from optional to mandatory. Does that cover it?
And Lynn, does that cover all situations in the school, or can we say to be determined the specific times that the masks must be worn and when they're allowed to take a break?
I think as long as you're indoor.
Do that later? What?
Indoors with appropriate breaks, yes.
And maybe we should say regardless of vaccination status.
Yeah, how about that? That's what I was thinking too,
Yeah.
vaccination status. And then when you're talking about children, are you talking about students and staff?
Yes.
Their vaccination status.
Student and staff and visitors.
And visitors.
Visitors.
And what is the current break time for the child as far as masking goes? Do they get the mask break, or is that something that's going to be adjusted, or?
So mask breaks varied greatly. We heard a student say that the only time she had a mask break was at lunch, I think is what you said. So certainly we would want teachers to offer additional mask breaks beyond lunch only. My office is right here, so I was able to see the elementary students literally walk around the building several times a day. So I think there was a great variation in that, and that's something that we can follow up to teachers to ensure that our learners do have the breaks that they need.
And is there do you guys ever discuss being outside when you can, like having the class, doing a class outside if it's possible?
So we have had some instruction happen outside. Last year there were different activities, or teachers took kids outside. And you've seen other districts have, or local private school put a tent up outside, right? So, we spent a lot of time investing in security systems and safety and maintaining the double doors for students to stay inside, and procedures and protocols on unlocking doors. So, you have all of that coupled with, all of our students are outside. So the challenge is to find a balance. And do I think kids should be outside? Absolutely. I want our kids to be comfortable. So I think there's a balance there. And I know our safety and security guy in the back of the room is like, I hope she doesn't want to put tents up again, because we already talked about that. So, I think that's one of the challenges of we've done the active shooter drills. We've done, we've really spent a lot of time talking about safety and security of kids inside of our buildings.
Sure, and we can also talk hopefully about the windows being open and more of that stuff too that would help potentially.
And some of the building windows don't open. And there is, interference with their air systems when you do open windows. So opening windows sounds like an easy solution, and it isn't always.
I'll stop suggesting things that make your life difficult.
No, suggestions are good. I don't intend to make anybody feel that way. Suggestions are good, and we've talked about that. And, we've sat down and talked about the air systems and the do we leave doors open? We've had all the doors locked. There's one entrance in and one entrance out. 5 years ago, you could go in any entrance. Things have just really changed. And this is forcing us to think about things differently again.
Lynn, do you need a minute to make the adjustment?
Point of order, I think we have an incomplete motion, and I think Ms. Roddick can help introduce a motion that the board can second and then have further discussion on, and then a roll call vote.
It kind of got a little derailed there.
Yeah, no, that's why I was trying to get us back there to the language of the motion.
And I think, with regards to some of the concerns that the board recommended as far as time and everything like that, I think the motion should be simple, and then that's more administrative.
Yep.
Right. So the motion would be to. Again, my apologies.
The motion I would recommend is a motion to revise the July 14th, 21 Health and Safety Plan from optional to mandatory masking.
That's it? Yes, just change the one word, basically.
Correct.
All right.
So we need a motion on that now, by second.
Correct.
Okay. All right, Becky and Joe again. I'm assuming.
Do you need us to read it in, or what you said, is that enough?
read it in.
Okay.
And he
Becky moved.
Good
it.
enough.
I seconded it.
Yeah, now we vote, now we vote.
Oh, okay.
We do comment if you want, but then we vote.
Good.
I think we said enough, right?
And it has to be a roll call vote?
I believe.
It should be.
It
All
does
right.
have to be because we have to report it to the state.
Okay. All right.
So to be clear, before we roll call vote, so everyone knows what you're voting on, I'm changing this highlighted blue line, optional but strongly encouraged, to required.
Or do you say mandatory?
Mandatory.
Yeah, mandatory.
Mike, you want
The date was changed at the bottom. I changed the dates at the top. I'll change this date and the vote.
Okay, I guess we had enough discussion. Okay, Mr. Tiller, can we have a roll call?
Mr. DeFrank,
Yes.
Ms. Frick,
No.
Mr. Katanis,
Yes.
Ms. Glenister,
Yes.
Mr. Ganal,
Yes.
Mr. Hattiger,
Yes.
Ms. Klinger.
Undecided.
I need a yes, no, or an abstention.
Abstain.
Mrs. Nemitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ziegler,
Yes.
we have 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So
Thank you.
before we go on, just a thank you. I know as a result of the survey results, we're going to have, and a result of this vote, half of the people are going to be in support of the decision, and approximately half of the people are not going to be in support of the decision. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to the conversation. And please know it will be a standing item. The next time we'll discuss it will be on September 1st at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, that takes us to Dental and Health Benefits Consortium, class of 2025, approved the established Student Activity Fund. Lehigh Valley Children's Centers, the tuition rates, approved the tuition rates for the daycare that we utilize. As far as 3.6 goes, the transportation program, do we have a presentation before we discuss that?
Where are we at here?
Did we move the other items? We have to go back to those, right?
No.
No. Well, aren't we going to take care of, that was 3.1. Aren't we going to take care of the other ones? But I want to ask before we discuss the student transportation, which is part of the operations.
So
Can we vote on 3.2 through 3.5?
3.6, there's no additional presentations. 3.7 is a discussion.
Okay.
And there are a couple of details to share for that.
Okay, so before I move everything, should we have that 3.7 transportation update?
Actually, there is no motion for 3.7, so you can move 3.2 to 3.6 right now, and then we can have the presentation.
Okay. Can we, can I have a motion to approve items 3.2 through 3.6, please?
So moved.
Okay. Any conversation or discussion regarding any of them? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to 3.7, which is the transportation update.
Is this the express?
Community bus stop.
There you go.
I've been calling.
I think Bill did something.
Can we call it the
He's
express
trying
though?
to
Because I
keep
like
us
that better.
No. It's community bus stop. So let me just pull this up there real quick.
Didn't squeak, that's good.
All right, so you'll recall that we had talked about the possibility of doing a community bus stop in response to some members of the community that were looking for an express bus. And we determined that the cost of an express bus may be cost prohibitive of adding an extra route, right? So we decided to do a survey to determine what could be done, what could work. And so this is a little brief presentation to share what we learned. So we have the survey results, and then we'll have the community bus stop proposal. I'm sorry. Just to make sure everybody can hear me. And then board discussion on the topic. So the survey results, we put up the survey in July, and we had about a week and a half for responses. We had 69 responses. Some of them were duplicative, maybe two different parents filled out for the same student. So we boiled it all down, but the results were 39.1% of those respondents were interested in potentially utilizing the community bus stop, depending on what it was. 10.1% said it may change their enrollment plans if we made it available. So of this boiling all down, there was 28 students that indicated an interest. 4 of those are actually on the eastern side of Salisbury, so this option really wouldn't benefit them that we came up with, but we just wanted to share the data. So the proposal, if the board decides to instruct us to go, direct us to go this way, would be to add a community bus stop at Devonshire and 33rd Street at the end of the route for bus 25. So that's right in front of Western Salisbury Elementary School building. The anticipated morning pickup time for that stop would be between 8:25 and 8:30. 11 of the 24 students that are interested are already assigned to bus 25. So it would not even be changing their bus. It'd just be they'd go to that last stop instead. There is room for the remaining 13 interested students that are on other bus routes to be added to bus 25. So it would not change the routes. It would not change the number of buses. We can accommodate based on the number of students assigned to that bus currently. And then the anticipated afternoon drop-off time would be approximately 4 p.m. So I can show you a little bit of what the student impact would be, who might potentially benefit from this. But this is, really no additional cost for the district. It doesn't reroute us. If everybody said they're still interested, it doesn't really change our routes or anything. It's just where they get on the bus, right? So if I go to student impact, I'll try to make it a little bit bigger so people can see the data. So I have hidden the names of people for their identity protections, but just to show you, the grade level we're talking about, what bus number they're on, where their stop is that's assigned, and then the AM pickup time. So we're talking about the stop being at 8:25. So you'll see here, a couple of these individuals will be picked up at their normal stop at like 8:18, 8:16. So potentially they would have a shorter ride on the bus, but depending on where they're coming from, how early do they have to leave their house, and that would be a choice that the parents would have to make. Would it really benefit them or not? And then on the way home, we're talking about 4 p.m., and if you look at their return stops, you're 3:58, 4 o'clock. So there might be minimal benefit for some families, but then you look at some of these other families down here on like Greenwood and Trailer Drive, where 8:10 is when they'd be picked up. So going to an 8:25 pickup might be better, and you see their return time is 4:14. The community bus stop would be 4 o'clock. So there could be some savings and some benefits, and you'll see a number of other students down here. Their pickup times for their current stop, and if you see this group here, this is all bus 25. Pickup time at their normal stop would be 8:10, 8:04, 8:12, 8:05, 8:07. So some of these that are at the very beginning of the route, they could benefit potentially by having the community bus stop at the end of the route at 8:25. Obviously, they just have to get to that stop. But then you'll see this one here, 8:24. I think it's the stop right before the community bus stop. There really wouldn't be much benefit potentially for them. And they're also the first stop picked up, so it's right before the community bus stop. So if the board thinks that this is a good option that we should pursue, like I said, there really is no cost. There really is no rerouting of buses. What it would be is basically the transportation department would reach out to these families that express interest and contact them and really go over, okay, here's your current stop, here's a time, here's a proposal. Would you like to commit to changing your stop to be this community bus stop, yes or no? Assuming all 24 wanted to do it, like I said, we could accommodate that. but we'd really have to limit it to the people that responded to the survey. We can't leave it an open door for another 10, 20 families to sign up, because then that could, enter into rerouting and additional costs and stuff like that. But, so the proposal really is at this time for us to, if the board directs us to offer this community bus stop at Devonshire and 33rd for those 24 students that responded, and like I said, have the transportation department reach out and identify. And like I said, if 5 people take advantage of it, it doesn't really affect us and it helps them. If all 24, we can still accommodate, it doesn't change the routes.
Just for an example, that Greenwald, if you do the math on it, it's 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, to half an hour a day for 5 days. That's a lot of time in somebody's life. And not to mention, it makes it a lot easier in the morning. So if you can get me 15 more minutes in my morning, I would appreciate that as well. But like you said, it's not costing us anything, so we can help out a few families, make their lives a little easier. Why not?
Yeah, like I said, before, and part of the reason we have this now rather than having the survey data out in July, the board is, in July, we didn't know what the bus routes were. So we were able to show you clear examples that it could save this family 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because they're on routes now. So that was just released on Monday. So now we have the opportunity to show, we were able to look at the data and say, okay, here's what we could do. We know how many people are on this bus. We know how many people are interested. What would be a potential option for them? And then we can contact these families now and say, here is the differences for you. In July, we just didn't have that data available because the bus routes weren't finalized. And part of the reason the bus routes were finalized right before the 16th when we released them on Monday is there's so many changes in July and in the beginning of August of enrollments. And if we put this out in July and had the bus routes ready, we'd be rerouting and going through all this effort. And we're still going to have a number of changes between now and the start of school. We still get them in daily, but hopefully they're limited enough that we aren't dramatically changing the routes between now and then, right? So this is really giving us the most accurate information, but also enough time still to make adjustments if we have to before school starts. But yeah, I mean, I think I think we should leave it up to a parent's decision. If the board so directs us to do that, we let them know, and if that 15 minutes benefits them, if they can get to the stop, like I said, it really does not financially impact the district. It's giving an option, and we can do that if the board directs us to do so.
Yeah, I know this is a little late in the game for this, and this is just a thought for possibly for next year. Is those 4 families that said that they were on the eastern side, we have 4 grade levels now going across town the other direction to the middle school. So I would not be opposed to, let's see how this goes, obviously. Okay.
Same thing. What about
My
the
kids
east
are on
side?
the first bus.
What about the east side?
So the other way around.
Go the opposite way.
Trust me, I would love to look at it this year. I don't know if it's feasible because of just time constraints, but.
Middle school?
Yeah.
So we thought about that when we first came up with this idea of what we could do. The challenges with middle school is a lot of those middle school routes go and do an elementary route. And so extending those routes with extra stops or extra length could potentially impact their ability to get to elementary school. We don't know if it would or not until we actually looked at it.
Yep.
But we have that concern, whereas if by adding an extra stop, it lengthened the route of elementary, there's not a subsequent run right after elementary. So we knew it'd be easier to try to accommodate something, right? I mean, we can look into what potential impacts there would be.
I mean, even if it was the last stop, like where is that last stop? That way you're not adding a stop. And that way it's, all right, I know I have to get for example, my 2 knuckleheads to the intersection of such and such and such and such and that saves us 20 minutes in the morning. It's helpful. It just makes life a little easier. And I'm not trying to be selfish here, but I know there's other people that are going to be in the same position.
I mean, we can look into that. One of the other concerns we had is a lot of these stops are in residential communities, of course. And the potential, if 20 people want to take advantage of it, now you might be putting 20 people at a corner and filling up neighborhoods. So I think I think it's a great idea that we should look at. And those were some of the concerns that we immediately thought of is if I extended the bus run, would that impact the elementary runs? Also, depending on where we did it, would some routes be eligible because you could accommodate a large group of students, but then others, it would be impacting neighborhoods. And we just, to be honest with you, I don't think we had enough time to really say, how can we flush it out and really try to accommodate this first need. But we can definitely look into it.
It's a good idea to put it in their think tank for next year. Where would you put the last bus stop for an express bus from the east side to the middle school that could accommodate, 15, 20 students coming there,
Yeah.
getting on at that juncture, and look for that departure point where it wouldn't be overwhelm a community or a stop, you could do that. So that's a good
Yeah.
thought. That's a
Because
good
one of
thought.
the things we did talk about is, would it be possible to have a stop like that in front of the Salisbury Elementary, or even at the high school? Could you have like a drop-off and pick up? But then we also worried about, at the high school, the timing of, well, that would probably be when high school students are arriving, right, with cars and stuff like that. And then at the elementary school, once again, would there be enough parking? So we can definitely take that under advisement to look at. You're right, probably for next year might be easier, and seeing how this works this year.
I wouldn't mind if it was for this year, though.
Joe's thinking of his two knuckleheads.
And what wasn't the original concern, we really focused on the elementary kids
Yes,
because of
yeah.
the longer time and it was more
Yep.
difficult.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, younger,
Because
younger
that,
kids
the
being on the
impact was
bus
on
for
the
that
school
time.
being closed. but-
Right, the Asian.
Yeah.
But I wrote the same question down right even before we started, what about east side to west
Yeah.
Yep,
side?
okay.
Maybe this is a stupid question, but, okay, suppose I say I want my child picked up at Western, and I tell you that. Now, since it's the same bus, I guess it doesn't matter. Suppose I just want them to hop on the bus at 8:05 instead of taking them to the middle school at 8:25. Are we allowed to do that? Today I just don't have time to drop you at 8:25. So now you're gonna hop on the bus. So what if that bus stops at Western and every parent that day decided they hopped on at their regular stop? Does that matter?
So some of the challenges with that is, it's kind of like we have what they call babysitter stops or daycare stops, right? And really, those need to be in advance. It's not really like today we decide, okay, we're gonna do something different. You really need to have advance notice, and some of the challenges would be, some of these stops will already have kids from other families that are still gonna be at that main stop, but if it happens to be that they were the only kids at the stop, and they opted out of that stop to go to the community bus stop, the bus driver would no longer have a stop there. They wouldn't be looking, and if that stop doesn't exist anymore, they might not even drive past that street, right, if it take it. So really, we're looking for a commitment from the families to say,
Yeah.
we are doing this. Now.
It's a great question.
You know, now, for one officer, if they happen to miss it, could they go try to catch it at the end? Really, we're looking for commitments, and it's not really a today this, tomorrow that. And even with our babysitter and daycare stops, it's not really this, I wake up this morning and try to decide something to do something different. Usually there's a schedule and advance notice with that.
So you're basically flipping a switch from one stop to another, like you're turning this one on, you're turning this one off.
If they accept that we're changing their stop in the portal to that stop.
And I think before, Joe, you're current, but I know when my son wanted to change and maybe go home with another one, he was staying there, you had to send a note like a week ahead of time saying, I give my permission for my son to get off at this bus stop with such and such, so they knew that ahead of time, so it had to be noticed to get that done. You just couldn't do it on a whim. Just, so just to control.
Right.
No.
That's a good question, because I was thinking they're gonna be stopping anyway. There would be no stopping at the home and the community, because that would just add more time. The kids, they wouldn't get to school on time.
Right.
And especially for the drop-off. You're talking about elementary students in particular, and kindergarten students have to be received by a parent or guardian. We can't just leave them off with that. So we need to know ahead of time if they're getting off at a different spot, who's receiving them. So that's some of the challenges, and that's why we really need consistency, because the drivers are going to expect who's getting on at which stops, who's supposed to get off, and like I said, especially for getting off, they know, okay, hey, Johnny and Susie are supposed to get off at this stop, right? And they look for them, they call out for them, and if they're changing, day to day to different things, it's just going to make it very hard for those bus drivers to manage while they're also trying to pay attention to the road and traffic as well. So we're really asking them to commit to a stop.
So do you need a vote for the?
We do not need any board approval. It's just, if you're giving us a direction that you would like us to pursue this, the administration will pursue it.
Okay, everybody's.
Please do it.
Yep, yes.
All right.
Just to clarify for our families here and those watching, the times are approximate and they won't be determined until we adjust the routes.
Yeah, there's a little bit of fluctuation in times, especially as if things change and we go through the first few days of school. You'll get a better sense for your routes, like you have in any other year, either approximate times. But so then the transportation department will be reaching out to these families in the next couple of days with the information and asking them, would they like to take it?
Some of the families that specifically asked about this involved?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Next takes us to the Personnel Committee. I'm sorry. That takes us to Personnel Committee, and that would be Mary. Are you? I'm sorry?
I don't think our mic is working.
Okay.
That's probably the bad one.
Battery's gone.
Battery croaked.
Mary, you aren't going to go over these one at a time, are you?
Oh, yeah, all 53 of them.
Yeah, okay.
Not. For your approval tonight, I have items 4.1 through the biggest one I have ever seen, 4.53. This kind of always happens at this time of year with staffing, hiring, and resignations that we would have received in the time frame required. So we do have some resignations. We have switching of buildings. We have someone who reached, two folks who have reached tenure status. Our appointment of our assistant superintendent, building transfer for Mr. Muschlitz from, is he somewhere?
That's here.
Oh, from the high school to the elementary school. We've recalled a staff member who had been furloughed. We have hired, let's see, a couple pages of people. 4.18 is not a relative, so I do not need to abstain. I've had that questioned. Again, 4.18, Ziegler employment is not a relative of mine. Again, several more pages of employments. We have IAs. We have one-on-one IAs hired. We have a district-wide nurse assistant hired. We have science. We have psychologists. We have coaches, a library media specialist. So they're a busy season the past couple of months with getting some folks hired and in place. Some building transfers happening. And then the, also FMLA requests going out and coming back. We have, because of having new staff, and induction program mentors happening. We have coaches, quite a few, and game workers. And then our normal, always at the end, is our substitute additions and substitute deletions. So for your approval tonight, I'd like to move 4.1 through 4.53.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mary concerning any of them? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Mrs. Frick, do we have anything relative to the policies?
No policies to discuss or change right now.
Okay, thank you. And we do not have a student activities report? Okay, that takes us to the Lehigh Carbon Intermediate Unit. Mary, you're still on.
Thank you. My board meeting was just this past Monday evening. The highlight of the meeting was all the CLIU 21 graduations in all the different buildings and different programs from the Lehigh Learning, the Allentown Learning Academy, Project Search. There were 41 students who graduated. Unfortunately, we could not come together as one big group. They had to have them individualized at their own building. In addition, a lot of, just as we have had, a lot of staffing, moving, changing, resigning, hiring, always a big shift. And then in addition for CLIU 21, there's always a summertime employment for the programs that are happening throughout the summer. So there were a lot of personnel changes for there as well. Opening day ceremonies for the 800 employees of the IU-21 were held yesterday morning. I was in attendance for giving a welcome back to school speech. This year was again different. We normally are all located at Parkland High School as one group and have the welcome back. This year they were in scattered conference rooms, transportation center, all throughout IU premises. So that happened yesterday. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay, that takes us to L-Tri-C, Mr. DeFrank.
Yes, we had our board meeting on August 5th. Reviewed several programs, but focused on grants that we received from state and the federal government, which were quite generous, looking into ways to support our students. One, to encourage students to complete their degrees, and two, coaching students to come back. There's a lot of, debt forgiveness, helping students out, and there's a lot of active programs to help students get re-engaged. So if there's ever a time that a student is thinking of going for or getting engaged in college or changing their career or looking for a different path, now's the time to do it, because the state and federal government are really trying to, one, there's a program to get people to finish their program. But they're that one semester left to get that associate degree. There are funds out there to help you do that. And if you wanted to begin your career or change your career, there's funds out there to help you do that. So I encourage people to look on the website, get engaged with that, because there's never been a greater time, or I think a better time, for the governments are out there supporting kids and trying to help them be successful. So I would really encourage them to look at L-Tri-C at this point in time, because they are really looking to try to enable kids to be as successful. And these are some of the neediest out there that may not have a mentor or a person in their lives that give them guidance or show them the path, but they have the ability, and L-Tri-C is there to help them.
Sam, I just read an article a few weeks ago. I can't remember where it's from. I'll look for it and I'll send it to you. But it was staggering, the amount of people that are like one class or a few credits short of whether it's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree at varying all across the country. I was floored by how close so many people and the varying reasons for why they didn't finish. Whether it was a change in their life that they could nothing, or it was money, or there's lots of different reasons. But there is a focus now nationally of like, how do we help these people finish out?
Yeah,
So.
and basically, L-Tri-C has funds to pay for that. So
Yeah.
basically putting in your time, getting engaged and finishing off that degree, it's there because they want them to get them engaged in the workforce, because we need these people. If you look at the number of jobs out there and the number of candidates, interviews are crying for people with a skill and a graduation. So it is just self-fulfillment to get people engaged in society. So there's never been a greater time to get yourself back into college and finish off that degree, or try to improve your standing where you're at, because the government is trying to help you, and L-Tri-C is there with a complete program to sit down with staffing and support to help you. And you can't believe what some of these students have to go through. My heart goes out to them. Something I never even thought about. It even gets down to, where am I going to get fed? Hunger, homelessness, yada, 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 that comes up into their lives that we never have to deal with, that are engaging these students, that L-Tri-C has now set up programs to reach to them and help them to get their career. So it's very heartwarming, and I can't say it enough to let people know in the community that's out there, and there's the ability to go back and complete that degree at this time. If you couldn't, for whatever reason it was at that time, now's a great time to engage and get that done.
Yep.
Sounds good.
That's my report.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, that takes us to LCTI, Sarah Nemitz.
I have no report. We did not meet in July, and our next meeting is either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after.
Okay,
So
thank
I'll
you.
Something next month.
Great, thanks. Okay, PSBA, any report from either Audrey or Becky?
I didn't plan on reporting anything new for the PASBA organization, but, I think I'm going to try to make available to, maybe if we can put it on our webpage, a podcast called School Boards 101, Educating Your Community, and it helps local communities better understand the role and authority of school boards, and will help support a collaborative and effective relationship between elected school officials and their constituency. So I'll see if I can pass this on. You're allowed to pass it on, and I'll see if I can do that. It's interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If it's not copyrighted or protected by membership, we will figure out a way to get it out
It
there.
did say feel free to post and share the link.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Roddick,
Okay.
Do you have a solicitor's report?
I do, and I will try and make this brief. I know it's been a long night. Just wanted to refresh the board's memory about Act 110. It was an amendment to the public school code because some policies are going to be coming your way next month for review. Act 110 is basically it's titled the Delinquent of Sexual Assault. And sexual assault covers 6 sexual crimes. And if you have a perpetrator who's convicted of sexual assault and a victim enrolled in the school district at the same time, the district's required to do one of 3 things. One, they have to expel what I'm calling the perpetrator. It's quicker to say than adjudicated delinquent. Unless you already disciplined that student for that same sexual assault. You have to transfer the perpetrator to an alternative school, or you need to reassign the perpetrator to a different district school or to a different district program. So that is an option that may be a little bit easier for bigger districts, but you have one middle school and one high school. So it can make things a little bit more difficult. The perpetrator and the victim cannot be transported on the same bus. They cannot participate in school-sponsored activities at the same time. If a student is convicted of sexual assault, they must notify the district within 72 hours of the conviction. And the parent must also complete a sworn affidavit when the student is enrolled, indicating whether or not the student was expelled for an Act 110 violation, and that's subject to penalty of the Crimes Code, unsworn falsification to authorities. Pursuant to the amendment, the district must develop or update written policies to address these issues. So I just wanted to refresh your memory on that act because you'll be looking at some policies next month. I also wanted to thank the board for exercising the option to extend our fee agreement. It's something that we offer to our clients for at least the past 8 years. And the incentive is if you exercise that option earlier than our solicitor's agreement expires, we lock in your retainer at the same rate for each of the 3 years. Typically that retainer increases annually. So that's kind of the quid pro quo for exercising that option. I believe the district exercised it twice in the past, and the most recent one was in 2018. So thank you. We really enjoy working with you and appreciate the retention. Thanks.
Thank you for what you do for us too, Christine. I have a quick question concerning when you said that the perpetrator, or if somebody is convicted, they have, 72 hours, you said, to come and report that has happened to the school. I would have thought, wouldn't the police do that?
And your SROs are here, so they might be better able to answer this, but it typically, information would come through the probation office, but that may not come within 72 hours of the conviction. So information would come from different points, but under this act, the student is required to notify the district.
Can I ask a question also about Act 110? Are we talking about any assault between 2 of our students or just one that happens on our property?
It's any one of the 6 crimes, sexual assault, and the student, the perpetrator, must be convicted or adjudicated delinquent of it. And the perpetrator and the victim both have to attend Salisbury Township School District.
But it could happen somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine, and thank you to you and King Spry for everything you do for this district. You've been doing it for years, and we appreciate it. Okay, the superintendent, that's you.
All right, so quickly here, want to give our school community an update on staffing. You saw we have quite a few new hires. Mrs. Pauling led a new hiring session for new staff members, new professional staff members this evening. These are some positions that we're still working on filling. Part-time elementary school counselor, middle school part-time art, Tonight, the board approved the transfer of Mr. Brian Mushlitz, our SHS assistant principal, to SES assistant principal. That position will now need to be filled at the high school. We're still looking for another school psychologist. We need, I believe the count is still 7 instructional assistants. And we're still looking for a middle school part-time Spanish teacher, of which we don't have any applicants at this time. So that one is particularly concerning. How will we offer Spanish? Will we offer Spanish to middle school students? Will we look at offering it online? Will we look at a study hall? Do we need to look at hiring a full-time Spanish person so that we can, a full-time Spanish teacher so that we can continue the program? Currently, there are about 90 students at the middle school who have requested Spanish. So we're looking for a solution and hoping that we can get some applicants. So please spread the word.
Do you have people interested in full-time and not part-time? Have you had that?
We had a part-time teacher resign and leave us for a full-time position in another district. And it's my understanding, although I have not verified this, that there were multiple full-time Spanish positions available in the Valley this summer.
What would it take for us to complete that, to be able to keep a full-time person instead of part-time?
So there would be a financial increase. We would be over the 29 hours, so we would be required to offer health benefits. Single health benefits would be roughly, and families 22. So the difference would be from a part-time salary to a full-time salary, and then the addition of the benefits. And keep in mind, then you have that PSERS cost on the full salary as opposed to the part-time salary. It's concerning because we have so many students who want to take Spanish. We're not jumping at the opportunity to offer it online. We're looking to offer it face-to-face. We may consider offering it online for the first semester, the first marking period, and then look at something else. But we're still hoping we can get something here before the start of the school year, because not only does it affect this year, but then it affects the Spanish program for next year. And we have a very healthy Spanish program, and we certainly don't want to see a year where we have a gap because of a staffing issue that we may be able to solve. So current job openings are posted on the website. I just want to share with the community that's here tonight, as well as those of you who are watching online on our YouTube channel, that I am personally making an attempt to put a greater focus on communication. We've heard some criticism about communication and transparency, and I've committed to the community updates monthly. You should have received the initial community update last week, I think. It's kind of blurring together.
It was last week. Friday,
thank you. If you didn't receive it, that means you're not on our list. Earlier this year, I did send a couple of communications out where I did not select the incoming kindergarten list. That has since been rectified, that all of our lists have been rolled over. If for some reason you didn't receive that, please follow up with us about your Sapphire information, because that's what's happening. We've also heard some criticism about not a mode of communication. I'm getting too many phone calls. I'm not getting enough phone calls. I'm getting too many emails. I'm not getting, I don't think I ever heard anybody say I'm not getting enough emails. I'm not getting text messages. I would like to get this. So, it's very different opinions. And, I have had complaints about too many phone calls. So I'm sending a survey out and hoping people will participate and let us know how you'd like to be communicated with, so that we can do our best to meet our community where it is. I also invite you in that survey to share topics or preferences so that we can make an effort to meet your needs and expectations. You should have seen on Facebook, as well as via email, Ms. Deeb sent out, there are 4 community clinics for vaccination that are open to us. They were sent to me by Lehigh Valley Health Network when I reached out and asked them, are we able to schedule a clinic? Should we choose to do so? And we certainly can do that if we have enough interest. These are available right now, so anybody can attend, whether you live, whatever proximity you are to those locations. Information is on Facebook and via email. We've already addressed this PDE, PA, DOH state testing program. This is something that I'm considering right now. We do need to submit interest if we are interested. At this point, and I haven't received clarification, I don't know if I submit interest if that commits us. So I have not submitted interest yet. But if I learn that it does not commit us, I will be submitting interest so that I can continue to get information should I choose to enroll in this in the future. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Lynn, can you explain what the qualifications are for an IA? Maybe there'll be people out there that might be familiar with somebody that might be interested.
Sure. So our instructional assistants need to be highly qualified or have 2 hours of college education. If the instructional assistant does not have 2 hours of college education, but is, 2 years. I said 2 hours. Yeah, 2 years. We are now like bordering an hour and a half past my bedtime. 2 years of credits, and if the person does not have 2 years of credits but is very interested in working with us, we do have a credentialing process that we can utilize for IAs who would be working in a special education environment. It does require some training, watching webinars, and then some follow-up assessment, interview, observing the individual to determine the competency. So if people out there are interested in part-time work, you enjoy working with kids, you enjoy helping our learners be successful in our learning environments, don't hesitate to reach out to our HR department and have a conversation. Our instructional assistants are really vital to many of our kids' success, so looking to fill those positions. If we don't fill them, we will likely ask some IAs to work some additional hours to cover students that are not currently covered to make sure that we're meeting the IEP goals for students.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us to new business. Do we have any new business from any of the board members? Okay, seeing none. I just want to make a comment. This whole business of board members not having any kids in the district is bothersome. We care about these kids, and every one of us that have been accused of not caring because we don't have kids in the district, number one, we do care, and number two, we all had kids in the district. Every one of us had kids in the district. So we have both scenarios. We had kids in the district, and we also now don't have kids in the district. So I just want to make it known to everybody that we do care about the kids, and I'm speaking on behalf of every board member here that doesn't have kids in the district. That's how we feel, so I just want to make that known. On to citizens' inquiries and comments. Do we have anybody?
Yep.
Mike?
Yep. Nicole Hickson.
Oh gosh, when I wrote this, I had good evening written on here, and I'm not sure I have much longer. Well, good evening. My name's Nicole Hickson. I live at 2862 Edgemont Drive, and I don't envy the role you've been in tonight. The reality is, no matter what choices you've made, people are going to be upset. If you allow parents the right to make their own choices for their children, some will say you're not following the science and accuse you of endangering children. If you mandate masks, then others will say that you're taking away freedoms, and again, you're not following the science, because let's be honest, everyone likes that line. Similarly, if you opt for an express bus route, you're just caving to the whiners on the west side of town. But if you don't opt for an express route, then you have no compassion for our youngest learners that have to add an extra 45 minutes to their day. You can't win. We appreciate the burden of the position you sit in. We have forgotten to be respectful and kind. And most of all, we have forgotten that we can disagree without being hateful. I've been encouraged by the leadership of Ms. Sweeney-Henton for the work that she has done in the community to repair some of the damage that was done throughout the last administration. You've worked hard to listen, and you've cultivated trust from parents, and it deserves to be recognized. You have a tough job to do, all of you. But the truth is, you all chose to sit in the seat that you occupy. You signed up for this role. You are our elected leaders. So I do pose a sincere question to you. There have been occasions over the past couple years where, as a rule-following, tax-paying, involved parent in our district, I have not felt that you have represented our interests well. I have made efforts to reach out to you as individuals outside of meetings to find that there are some members of this board who will not respond no matter what. No email, no phone calls, nothing from certain board members. We are not allowed to ask questions and receive answers to our questions while we are at board meetings. We must follow up with emails and RTK requests. As a taxpayer, as a voting constituent, and as a parent that volunteers year in and year out, I am asking you this: how we, the parents, can feel represented when we feel that we have no voice. Please know that we see the vacant stares when we get up to speak. You may not intend it, but it feels like a lack of interest and a lack of empathy on your part when we express our point of view. Perhaps it has become a protective measure because of our actions, but it still isn't acceptable. I am genuinely asking this question with the expectation of a response from the board. Not tonight, maybe next month when there's been time for reflection. When a parent feels as though they have no voice, as though you are not listening, what should we do? Because to this point, it feels like we've tried everything. When the vast majority of your constituents wanted Western to remain open, we signed petitions, we shared our concerns, you didn't listen. When the vast majority of parents wanted our students to go back to school in person last year, we filled out the surveys, we shared our opinions at meetings, and again, you did not listen. So we're asking, and we expect an answer. What should we do? You are the leaders. We elected you to lead. We expect you to lead us. Please consider my question. When we don't have a voice and the people can speak for us, who can speak for us, do not do so, what are we to do? Thank you.
Russell Landy? Left already. Brian Pojanowski?
I don't think I'll be as eloquent there, but I'll do my best. So to echo the last comments, I can say myself, I respect every one of you. I know you're in a tough position, and all I really ask is that there is, I'll go back to it, deliberative consultations. You're doing your homework, you're putting in the work, you're asking the questions. With that said, first, I just want to point out something, because I heard it from a couple of the board members who were talking about the survey and how it's even all of a sudden. And you probably noted that the original survey that went out prior to your last board meeting had a couple different options for parents to choose. It was, do you want your students go back unvaccinated, or should unvaccinated students have to wear masks? And it was 67, 70%. The other one was, should teachers or employees of the school district who are unvaccinated have to wear masks, right? And that was, again, in favor of, no, don't make them wear them. This survey just simply asked one question, which was, should people have to wear masks in the schools? So it did not give people the opportunity to distinguish between a kindergartner and me walking into, I don't know, drop off donuts for the principals. So I think if we do have a survey like that next round, that I think we have to be more consistent in the questions we're asking with those surveys so you can draw similar conclusions from each one. I don't think that was fair. But I appreciate the option of doing a survey, right? Secondly, in the DOH presentation here that came through, correctly and consistently well-worn fitting masks. What the heck does that mean, and who's going to enforce that with a 2-year-old or a second grader? Well-worn mask, what does that mean? Dr. Ostenholmer, back on August 3rd, he was on President Biden's kind of transition team with COVID actually was on CNN that said, we all know that cloth masks do not work. We know that. He was pushing N95 masks for everybody to wear. So I asked the board, what are you going to do? We're going to mask mandatory, but you know, who's going to enforce a well-fitting mask on a second grader? Okay, who's going to do that? So there's some questions there with, you know, we want to do what DOH says, but is any school teacher going to be checking those, right? What's that going to look like?
Probably do check them, you know, and then maybe they get sent
Well,
out.
well-fitting. I mean, well-fitting.
You can sort of tell when they're hanging
I'll put on my
loose,
mask right now.
hanging loose or not hanging loose or things
Yeah.
like that. I'm just
So,
guessing.
yeah, no. But I mean, I think it's worth, you know, contemplating. You know, I obviously understand you guys generally don't respond to our questions, but I'm throwing it out there, so hopefully in the next month you think about that. Furthermore, and I'm sorry about that, 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to come back and make a decision, right? We're going to re-talk about this. I guess the real question is, what was the data point that made it different this time, and what's going to be that data point of 4 or 6 weeks from now that are going to make you change your minds? So July 16th, right about when the last board meeting was, there were 16 cases, right? Lehigh County, now there's 73 rolling, right? On January 29th of this past year, when the kids went back to school, 288 cases. So what's that number? What's going to make you feel good and say, okay, we can go back? I heard things about, well, once the peak's over, right? We need to look at, you know, who's peaking where, right? You look at CDC numbers, they're looking at the macro view, they're not looking at micro views in terms of our own individual areas. So is it when the CDC says the peak's over? Well, is that going to be when Louisiana and Arkansas have reached their peak? Is it going to be, are we going to have a peak? Somebody mentioned Great Britain and that the peak seems to be over. It seems, and I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they thought that it was basically starting to flatten out, which gave it about a month. So the current variant was early July is when it kind of started. So, you know, when's that peak? And is it in 4 weeks? How are you going to tell what the peak was? What's that number that's going to say, hey, this is going to move me? That's my concern, because I think you're also going to have a situation where you're almost going to have kind of confirmation bias, right? So if 4 to 6 weeks from now you don't have outbreaks, well, did the mask work? Or is there just no outbreak amongst kids? And that we'll never know when you start from a restrictive standpoint like we're going with mask mandatory. So I know my buzzer kind of hit, but also another just issue I have is with the DOH standards that they're putting out. I know as we were under emergency authorization, you know, there were certain things that could be mandated on high. Our governor to this point has not tried to institute another emergency authorization. Is the DOH standards, is that something that is mandated? Is it something that comes out of emergency health authorizations? I don't know, but those are, if I'm sitting in your shoes, I'm asking those questions, right? Why do we have to do this if there's no health emergency? Is it recommendations? Is it, you know, what's that actual requirement? So again, if I was sitting where you were, that was just a question that I would have. I know I'm over. I do want to, I have just a message from, and I hope you don't mind it if I just read this out. From one of our constituents here, Tom Spinner, and he wanted me to share this with you guys. He was not able to be here today. He's out of the area, but he did.
Very out of the area.
Yeah, very out of the area for some of you
He's
that
in
know.
Aruba.
Yeah, I wish I was in the area he was at right now, and I'm sure some of you may be as well. But he did. You know, Tom always likes to participate in these, and he just wanted to say, first, I appreciate the horrible position the board is in, and I don't envy you. And I think a lot of us feel the same exact way there. But while I watched this meeting tonight, the board unfortunately failed to have the required professionals present for this conversation. Their participation is crucial for this type of decision, as no one on the board is qualified medical professional. Shouldn't this vote have been tabled until the medical professional was present? In my opinion, again, this should have been tabled and a new special meeting convened to complete the vote. Kind of echoes what I had said too. How do we not have our medical professional here to engage you guys in the proper dialogue that should be done at a board meeting under these circumstances. I'd just like to end today, because everybody wants to get out of here, I'm sure. Thank you guys. We appreciate what you do. Think about over the next month, 4 to 6 weeks, what's that point? What's going to change it? What's going to make you say, okay? Because there is no goalpost here that you guys set up. And for a lot of parents, it seems like it's constantly a moving goalpost on everything going on. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Christina Aki.
So first, I do want to thank Mrs. Frick for being the only board member who understands that parents need to make their own choices for their children. Before I had a child, I decided that I wanted to make different choices for my child than my parents may have made for me, and I looked forward to that. And everything that I have looked forward to is being taken from me as making my own choices for my child. He is mine, and you can't decide what is right or wrong for him. Becky, you made a comment from your speech that you provided that you had already written your statement prior to coming in here and hearing any of us speak. You said that you read the emails, but you did not listen to us talk.
Well, okay, but I prepared that before I came in.
I understand that. So your mind was already made up. It didn't matter what we were saying. You had your decision made in your head that it didn't matter what we wanted. You already made your choice.
If I had changed my mind, I wouldn't have read the statement.
What was the last statement that you read? What was the last couple sentences that you read?
Let's not fail our children.
After that. There was something after that, and then that's when she said, let's go to recess.
There was not something after that. That's the last thing I said.
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, about killing the kids.
I did not say anything about killing the kids.
She did not say anything about killing kids?
She didn't say anything about killing kids. She said a stop sign is there to meant to prevent people from killing each other.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll listen to it back on the recording because I'm...
Okay, I'll read that part too. It says, this action is contrary to civil society. In civil society, we understand that there are certain freedoms we give up, such as we don't run the red light, not only because we could get ourselves killed, but because we could get others killed as well.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood you then.
That's okay.
So I apologize for that. I heard something different.
Yeah, thank you.
But I still don't like that you had your statement prepared prior to coming in and hearing us. If I would have known that I needed to put my comments in the survey or send an email in order to be heard prior, now I know for next time, because I just wasted a whole night of being home with my son to be here to not be heard but by only one person. One person that cares about what we want for our child.
Sorry you feel that way, but like I said, if I had changed my mind after hearing your comments, then I would have changed my statement.
You wouldn't have, but
Well, I
again.
don't think you can say that, actually, because I get to decide that, so.
Okay, and I should be able to decide that my son goes to school without a mask on. At this point, I would rather have him home being schooled by me virtually, because you're saying that it could affect someone who has, a medical condition. What if my son has a mental health condition, is going into school and being bullied because, someone knows I don't want him wearing a mask, and it gets done that way? He's better off at home with me than being in school with people who are potentially going to bully him. But you're not worried about the mental health of the kids. You're worried about, you are, but thank you very much.
Just tell me what I think.
And Mr. Cass, that's all.
Oh, okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, so that takes us to upcoming meetings. We have, we have a meeting, an operations meeting at 7 o'clock, September 1st, and that will be followed by a curriculum meeting on September 1st, both in the admin building, tentatively. Executive session, September 15th, here at the admin building. Regular board meeting afterwards at 7:30. Executive session, October 6th at 6 o'clock in the admin building, followed by operations meeting October 6th and a regular board meeting on October 6th. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for your time. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank you,
for
George.
coming, and also for those of you who have joined us via YouTube. Thanks for taking